Can I invite all the candidates for welfare and community up to the stage, please? Sophia's asked me if she can send me questions for me to read out on her behalf. Is that right? Shall I get her to tweet?
If she tweets them out, yeah, just so that it's, because obviously you won't ask all the questions at tweet, they're just a selection. It's annoying that you can't really I suppose you could tick it off and then rub it off. So done that.
Are we just going to start left to right?
Yeah, and then we'll mix up the order. So with the questions, we'll start each one and go through.
Cool. Okay, thank you. So if we start from the left and work our way this way. So,
do you want to introduce them?
So up first we have Anna Kettle.
I hate you.
As I'm a short person. So hi, my name is Anna Kettle. This time last year I was stood, not on this stage, but on a stage very similar, running for activities. And though that didn't go the way I wanted it to, I learned a lot of many valuable things, mainly that I was running for entirely the wrong position. So this year I'm running for welfare, and I have 5 main policies on which I'm running. The first is moving towards long-term mental health support so that no student has to reach crisis point before they can access help. Secondly, is moving towards a positive campus community, so working with our part-time officers to run the campaigns that they think is important to help all students across all liberation groups. Secondly, better support for welfare in academia. That was thirdly. I can count. Better support for welfare in academia, particularly around things like supporting our academic reps when it comes to standing up to departments to make sure that we can all get the best out of our education. Fourthly, more support for postgraduate students. Currently, they are basically completely forgotten about, particularly by higher management. And outside of PG board, there's no way and no outlet for them to go and get the help and support that they really truly deserve. Finally, tackling the increasing commercialization on campus. There has been a desperate lack of politics and politicization of really important national student issues on this campus for the last few years. I would like to tackle and lobby the higher management and work with Lucy Living and the city councillors to try and end the increasing housing prices and also piecemeal increases in tuition fees, especially when our Vice Chancellor is getting a bonus. Thank you. Especially when our Vice Chancellor is getting a bonus in the millions of pounds and the cost of things like bread and milk are going up on campus for students who are having to work 2-3 jobs just to afford university. I've really been involved in welfare my entire time at university and before, so please put the kettle on and vote Anna for welfare and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up we have Seth.
So, welfare and community. To me, that means meeting the needs of individuals as well as making sure that there's a wider sense of community here at Lancaster. So, some of the things that I outline in my manifesto are quite small changes. They're quite cheap to implement, but they will have a massive effect on people. One of them is making all individual and accessible toilets explicitly gender neutral. This means that people who need them will be able to feel safe and comfortable on campus, just like many other people already can. Another policy that I have is Meat Free Mondays, and that's intersectional. It has an effect on health, on finance. It has an effect on the environment. As part of my Meat Free Mondays campaign, I'd also work with VegStock to make sure that there's accurate information out there for people that want to cut back on their meat consumption. And another change is to make sure that those who don't feel comfortable in big groups, socialising in big groups, meeting new people in big groups, to still feel like they can be part of our community. So these changes are small to implement, but they have a massive effect, especially on the people that need them. And so these big changes are changes that we can make together, and I will be your voice. I have the relevant experience to make big changes. I was on Manchester Youth Council for 2 years. We ran loads of campaigns about making sure that people had their voices heard, and that's experience that I can bring to this position. As a working class disabled trans queer student, I'm pretty well versed in how exclusionary life at university can be, whether intentionally or not. And that's why I want to be an accessible presence so that nobody is ever made to feel like they're not part of our community here at Lancaster.
Thank you. Next up, we have Hazel.
Hi, so I'm Hazel. Like everybody else here, I'm running for VP Welfare and Community. I was really inspired to run for this position because I became LGBTQ plus part-time officer in January, and I went, yeah, this is good. I want to do more stuff like this and get more involved in the union. So when I was writing my manifesto, the first thing I did was go and ask people what they wanted from the position, and they came up with 4 key areas, which luckily aligned with what I wanted to do. So good for me. So the first one of those is welfare. Accessing welfare can be really confusing to kind of work out where you need to go for what kind of problems. So I want to resolve that by consolidating all the information to one place so that you know where to get it. And also continue the fabulous work of the Grow Our Minds campaign and starting conversations about mental health. Secondly, is sustainability. So campus is developing a lot. We've got the Health and Innovation campus bit next to the Sports Centre coming along. And I think it's really important that we make sure it's just as sustainable as current campuses and try and make it ever more green and more eco-friendly. And also talk more about food sustainability. So there are a lot of students who don't really buy fresh fruit and veg because it's really hard to eat a large quantity before they go off in a week. So continuing to do things like promote the community fridge, and look at getting kind of budget-friendly recipe cards available from the Students' Union. Thanks. Because the ones on the iLancaster app, nobody knows about. The other 2 points I've got are community, so working with the We Are Lancaster project to keep that going with the city, and representation for liberation groups, even when they don't have part-time officers. So currently, we don't have a Students with Disability officer, and there is nobody making that voice heard. And lastly, more support for international students, particularly with Brexit coming up, making sure they have the information that they need.
Thank you. Next up, we have Emily.
Cheers, girls. Hello, I'm Emily, and believe it or not, I'm running for Vice President Welfare and Community. I was a welfare officer for 2 years for Pendle JCR, and I didn't receive any training at all from the student union. I had nobody to speak to apart from the SCR at Pendle, who were already very busy as it is. So I'm proposing that if elected, I'm going to train welfare officers. I'm going to work with college SCRs, wellbeing advisors, any kind of mental health or wellbeing or anything at all like that on campus to try and get welfare officers better equipped to deal with all the issues that people will come to them at 3 in the morning at Hustle or anything like that, because currently we're not equipped, we don't really know what to do with that. On top of that, I'm going to hold open welfare can't talk now. I'm going to hold open welfare hours, which anyone can come to at all. They're open to welfare officers who need a bit of help and support, need a bit of help on anything really, and also to absolutely anyone on campus who's got an issue that they want changing. I'll listen to you, talk it out, I'll do the research and get all the boring legwork done to get it sorted and find a solution that will work for everybody. And on top of that, I'm planning to hold bi-weekly meetings with reps from liberation groups, cultural and religious societies, academic reps and welfare officers so everybody can stay up to date with what's going on campus, where you get your help from as and when you need it. If we do this, I believe that welfare officers would really be your first place to go if you did have an issue. They'd know exactly who to send you to for whatever issue. They would be able to distribute and advertise any kind of campaign resources and materials available.
30 seconds.
Thank you. And finally, well, I've got 30 seconds left. Let's get rid of circuit, right? I've had enough of them. They're too expensive. It takes you about 3 times to dry your washing. I've looked into people who'll do it a lot cheaper and have a shared revenue agreement that can go into purple card offers for food and stuff in Central. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mariam.
Hi, I'm Mariam. I'm a first-year law student, and I want to engage with students more effectively. One way I would do this is by making freshers feel a part of our community before they even arrive. by allowing them to join liberation groups online and supplying them with information on the ventures, events and socials that take place. This creates awareness that here at Lancaster we have a non-discriminatory society and that we have communities for students that identify as BME or LGBTQ+, etc., making students less apprehensive about joining the university. Furthermore, I want to encourage students to seek out the help they need more easily by being able to book doctor's appointments and counselling sessions on the iLancaster app. This makes seeking the help you need more accessible, as you can do it at any time of the day. This would be particularly useful as often students with depression and anxiety claim that picking up the phone to book appointments is particularly difficult for them. I want to empower students to help each other through the formation of a student supporting student scheme where concerned friends can flag up any issues they have about the mental health or well-being of fellow students so that support can be provided. This scheme would be highly valuable to our society as the main reason that those suffering with mental health issues do not receive the help that they need is because they don't feel motivated enough to pursue the relevant channels. I aim to enhance the UniSafe function by adding a first aid feature which will alert someone with the relevant training to come straight to your residence. Also, I want to implement a security icon which will allow you to ring campus security or the college porter directly through the iLancaster app. Personally, I understand the importance of a cohesive society and I plan to encourage liberation groups to collaborate more as no matter which groups we identify with, we are all equal. Thank you.
Just before we move on to questions from the floor, can I ask that people don't scream or whoop just to keep the environment as accessible as possible? Thank you. Questions from the floor now. Anybody? Hannah?
My question's to Anna. You mentioned about supporting academic reps. How?
Is it on? It is on. So I think just even if it's getting the academic reps all in one place before your first faculty forum. So I was an academic rep in my first year. And kind of the first, so we had like a forum where students all got together beforehand, but then we were kind of just thrown into seeing the department. So I think if it was just a space where like reps could get together and be trained in things like even one session on like public speaking and argumentation and also have a chance to like collate your issues into like one clear document that could be given to for faculties ahead of time so that they can prepare answers and be more easily held to account if it's clear what the reps are like asking for. And so just kind of gathering them all together and making sure that they are like trained in how to best communicate their ideas.
Thank you. Just when you're asking questions, can you make them general to all the candidates and not to one specific one? Thank you. Any other questions from the room? Hannah.
Hi, a lot of you have been talking about the majority like welfare, but I was wondering how you were planning on engaging the Students' Union more with the community, because we have a very like the locals and then the students atmosphere, so.
So if we start with Seth and then work our way down.
Okay. Just have to give me a second. So I've worked with like local communities and things before, not necessarily in Lancaster, but I've worked with like engaging local communities and helping different groups to come together. Like as part of Manchester Youth Council, we did stuff where young people did things with like older people, and so I have a lot of experience in creating events and campaigns where different groups of people can come together, and there's no reason why I can't do that with Lancaster University and the students here and the residents of Lancaster.
So in terms of community, I think it's obviously really, really important to engage more with people in the town, but I think one of the groups that often gets forgotten is the other local universities. So we've got the University of Cumbria, which most of us go past on the bus every time we go into town, and we still don't really interact with them that much. So I think it would be really important to reach out to the University of Cumbria, the University of Central Lancashire, and make sure we're getting involved with them as well, because it's not just us and people who live in the town, they're there as well.
Time, thank you.
In my, when I've said about bi-weekly meetings, that's also kind of part of the community. If every welfare officer knows what's going on, they can like I said, they can advertise all these different other events and what have you in their colleges. More people are aware, more people turn up, making more friends, seeing other people. Can also get Campus in the City involved with that. I know they run every year, bringing university into the city. We can absolutely work with them in welfare things and everything. Wasn't very satisfactory, I apologise.
I think the best way to engage with the community is to work with charities. So partner up with them, hold fundraising events, and I think that's the best way that we can, engage the community.
So I think that things like Green Lancaster can be a really great way to reach out to the community, and also events. So I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's where we have like an open day where people from town can come and hold all the events, and there are a lot of our societies on show and things like that. And I think just holding more of those events and knowing, reaching out to our societies and our less obvious liberation group, like sports societies and stuff, and let them know that they can showcase and get involved and reach out, particularly like our charity societies and those sorts of things.
Thank you. Any more questions from the room? Alex? Oh, over there first, then Alex.
Hi, I'm a postgraduate student, and a recent report found that 1 in 3 PhD students at some point will suffer from depression or anxiety. Each candidate said that they'll make accessing services on campus easier. I was just wondering, how do each of you intend to do that?
So if we start with Hazel this time and work our way down, thank you.
Okay. So I think this isn't something that's necessarily specific to postgraduate students in terms of accessibility and things with mental health. I think we know it's something that's prevalent among all students. And I think the best thing that we can do is make students feel comfortable to start saying, maybe I need some help, or how can I do this better, and really encourage those conversations to start, so continue that work that's been going on.
Time, thank you.
How are you going to help postgrad students?
Could you repeat the question again for the candidates, if the mic is about? There we go.
More accessible mental health, yeah? That was the question?
Yeah, basically, how are you going to do it?
Okay, again, equipping welfare officers, because they're usually the easiest people to go to. They're just about in your college, you can have a brew and a chat with them, and they can signpost you to where you need to go. But again, kind of like Hazel said, encouraging more conversations about mental health on campus, instead of just putting posts up and saying, yeah, everybody gets it, actually having events, campaigns where people can actually come and openly talk about these issues without the stigma.
Often people with depression and anxiety find it very difficult to seek help, and by booking counselling appointments or doctor's appointments through the iLancaster app means you don't have to pick up the phone. It's something that people with anxiety in particular have said to me, that is the hardest part, picking up the phone. So just doing it through the app makes it a lot easier for you to seek the help that you need.
I think working with departments to help identify students who are struggling. A lot of times, grades will slip, things like attendance will slip. I think particularly at a postgraduate level, when you are having a more one-on-one, closer supervision, and it's often based more on individuals rather than departments, making sure that those individuals who are working with postgraduate students know where they can signpost to within the university and within counselling services, and making sure everything is really tied up between departments and our services on campus.
So it's already kind of all been said about reducing the stigma and things, but also I think an important thing is not telling people that they need to be fixed. It's okay if you're depressed. It's okay if you've got anxiety. Going to counselling, having medication, it's not going to fix you. You're still going to be like that. It doesn't fix everyone. People are depressed, and they're just depressed. That's just how they are, and that's okay. But what's not okay is how that is dealt with by academia. I think some sort of more of a relationship to, sorry.
Thank you. Any other questions? Alex, there we go.
Hi,
Hi. So it's mentioned as at most a bullet point in some of your manifestos, but every report and even current media really shows there's a rising trend in the conversations, if not the instances of sexual violence. What concrete actions would you take as VP Welfare to tackle that issue on campus and in our community?
Yep, starting with Emily this time.
One of the things I did when I was a welfare officer, in welfare packs we gave information about informed and willing consent, because that's a bit more important than just don't touch people in sugar, really. You need to understand what the implications are and why you shouldn't do it. Again, when I gave out condoms and sexual health items, I'd do the same. There'd always be information there. At the minute, the university kind of does talks, and that seems to be it. One of the things I said on Bail Rig was if we had more postering and more information just available, different ways of getting that information out there, and a lot more information than just don't touch people. Cheers.
So I believe that consent is something that's not widely talked about, and before I came to university, I wasn't given any information on consent. So I think what we need to do is, there needs to be leaflets in the rooms for freshers, advising them and telling them what consent is, what's okay, what's not okay. Also, postering is really important, because all we need is like a small, one sentence is enough to catch people's attention, you know, asking them, did they say yes?
Thank you. I think postering is well and good, but I'd like to look at a practical policy level and making sure that funding for the bystander intervention programme is ring-fenced, so it will continue in the future. Bystander intervention and consent training talks will continue to happen, and disclosure training is given to our JCRs so that if the worst thing were to happen, it is dealt with as effectively and as well as it possibly can be in the worst possible situations.
So, yeah, like people have said, you know, just raise more awareness, make sure that the funding's there, but also the type of consent, like, things that we get taught, they're quite heteronormative, they're quite cis-normative, they're all about a man with a penis raping a woman with a vagina, and that's not how sexual assault always happens. And I think that making it more inclusive of everybody will mean that those people will be less targeted, because they'll have information that's relevant to them.
Firstly, I completely second what Anna said about bystander intervention. And secondly, I think it's really important to do more in Freshers Week, because you get that sort of consent video and everyone laughs and feels a bit awkward, and that's kind of it. And it's not really about positivity or really going into detail, and kind of, as Mariam said, not everyone's had that information before, so we need to make sure that they are, and it's awkward, but they need to have it.
Thank you. Joe, you had a question.
Hi. A few of you mentioned services either that you would implement or highlight that should, in theory, already exist at this university. Where do you think we as a union or a university are failing students, and how would you correct that?
Well, I think that my student supporting student scheme is a really good way basically the fact that at the moment it's really difficult for friends to be able to ask the university and say, look, my friend needs help. That is a really good way for friends to be able to get the help that their friends need, because often with, say, mental health, depression and anxiety, often you can't reach out and say, I need help. Sometimes you're not aware that you're in such a dire situation where you do need help.
What was the question again, sorry, Joe?
Basically just, there are a lot of services which should, in theory, already exist. Where do you think the university or the union are failing to address problems or implement these properly, and how would you change that?
So I would like to see just a lot more politics within our students' union. I'd like to see our student representatives actually representing us and getting angry about things that matter. So things like working and tying into national campaigns around housing, around tuition fees. I want my student representatives to care. I don't want them to be apathetic around things like supporting the strikes. Like, thank you. I think it's a disgrace that they've done that, and I think that you shouldn't be allowed to get away with that.
So one of the things that I think the uni fails at, probably not intentionally, is just being exclusionary just because of ignorance, just because of not knowing. And so I think educating people, particularly the people who are implementing these schemes, like the counsellors that we have at university, educating them on issues so that they're not accidentally exclusionary of anybody, of disabled people, of LGBTQ plus people, just educating people just to make sure that they're not exclusionary by accident, because the impact is still the same.
Thank you.
I'd say that the main problem the union has is communication. And speaking as someone who's recently got quite heavily involved in the union, I know so much more than I did before I was involved. And before taking my role as part-time officer, I wasn't really that aware of what happened that much. And once you're in it, you learn all about these amazing things. There's brilliant things going on. But the day-to-day student tends to not really be aware of that. And I think that's hugely problematic. So communication is what we need to sort out.
Yeah, I'm with Hazel on this one, really. The university, LUSU, the colleges, there seems to be absolutely no cohesion between them. Like I said, I've worked in a college for 2 years and I very rarely saw any LUSU representatives knocking about or felt that I could go and approach them. So again, communication, definitely. If more people were a bit more informed, everyone could stay in contact and know what's going on and be updated and educated on everything that's happening, that would make things a lot easier, I think.
Thank you. Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. Thank you. We've had a question from our current VP Welfare and Community who can't be with us tonight. She sends her apologies, so I'll try my best to read that out. With welfare and community, there is a huge remit alongside working with the PTOs and JCR welfare officers. How will you ensure that your work impacts a large number of students, not just the communities that you feel passionate about and or relate the most to, as there is a tendency with this role to focus on one particular issue? So if we start with Anna this time.
I mean, I think we have to accept it is inevitable that whoever takes on the role will become sidelined in one way or another, no matter how hard we try to focus on a broad range of issues. But I think making sure we stay in contact with our JCRs and our part-time officers, and those lines of conversation are clear and open, so that if they're these officers feel comfortable coming to whoever gets the job, to make sure that they can highlight the issues that matter to them. As particularly JCR, members of the JCR are the ones talking to students day in, day out, hearing these issues day in, day out, and are best placed to know what the problems are.
So making sure that you don't just focus on one thing, I think it's really important to get the input of other people. If I got this position, I'll be listening to everyone. I won't just run with the things that I want to do. I'll have constant input directly from students, through JCRs, PTOs. I'll just have constant input from students, and I'll be doing the things that students want me to do, that you want me to do.
So as a PTO currently, I do have quite a lot of contact with the current VP Welfare and Community, but I know that can be really hard if you're not in and out of the union offices all the time. I happen to be there a lot, but not all of the PTOs are. So I think that kind of really says that we need to make sure that we can stay in touch with people, not just the people who we see and the people who we have big projects going on with, but make sure that it's all of the JCRs and all of the PTOs all of the time.
I'm going to be really boring and go on about my manifesto again. Again, the main point of it is to get JCRs and liberation groups, everybody together and talking. And one of the things that will achieve is that JCRs can come and say, look, we're seeing this issue, we've got this issue going on, what can we all do across campus to help it? I was going to go somewhere else with that, but I've completely forgotten. I apologise.
I think regular meetings with the JCR. I have met with the welfare officers on my Lonsdale JCR and talked to them about the issues, and it was really helpful and insightful to know what the issues are. Also, perhaps say hours where people can, students themselves can come and see the Vice President of Welfare and Community themselves to talk about issues would also be a good way for students who have issues to bring them up.
Thank you. Any more questions from the room? Nope. So thank you to all the candidates. We will now move on to VP Union Development. Oh, the debate. Sorry, my bad. Okay, so there is about 10 minutes here for candidates to debate one another regarding their manifesto points. Is there anyone who wants to start? You will have 30 seconds to respond. If not, I'll just pick on one of you.
Can we just not do the debate? We've not got anything to talk about. Oh no, apart from that, go on.
Thank you, Anna.
So in a lot of your manifestos, you have a lot of big ideas. How, like, obviously the money doesn't go on forever. How will you make sure, and how will you personally prioritize which of the big ideas you think are the most important and which will matter the most to students?
Well, my ideas are quite small to implement. They're not very expensive. But for ideas that do get quite expensive, when I was on Manchester Youth Council, I know I keep going on about it, but I was treasurer, so we applied for funding and things like that. So that's experience that I could bring here. I could apply for funding for a specific project if we don't have enough budget for it.
So where projects overlap with things that other people and other groups would be interested in, I think it's a case of pooling resources because they tend to go further. In terms of choosing between projects, I think it's a case of spending time talking to students to work out which one's most important to them and trying to do that. Trying to do all of them, but focus on the ones that students feel are most important.
None of the things in my manifesto actually require any funding. It's mainly welfare officer based. The circuit one does, but even in that, there can be a shared revenue agreement, and the money made on that shared revenue agreement can go back into it until it's been paid off. But for, like Hazel said, really for prioritising where funds should go, it's up to the student body. It's what the students want.
As part of my campaign, I've been speaking to a wide range of people on issues which they feel are most important, and a lot of them have said to me that mental health is the most important thing to them. So that's what I would focus on, because, yeah, that's what I would focus on, basically.
Thank you. Any other points from any of the candidates?
Do they have to be general questions, or can you ask... Okay, so you can ask specific questions. Mariam, I think it was in your manifesto you talked about having... it was the first aid on the Lancaster app. How do you propose to secure funding to have a 24-hour first aider trained on campus, ready to go to somebody when they need it? Because that's a lot of money.
So the best way to implement this is to have campus security or the college porters, to have them trained in first aid, because often when there is an emergency, they're the ones that are called out. So if they're trained in first aid, I think it's completely viable to have them trained in first aid and have them.
Response?
Any other points?
Are they not trained in first aid? Is that... and if they're not, perhaps they should be, but I thought they were. Other than that.
Emily, hello. We've tried changing circuit before. Why would you succeed when other attempts to get rid of them in the past have failed?
I can't promise right here, right now that it will absolutely happen. But through talking to people at the university, it looks like there isn't much of a demand for circuit as a company. Nobody likes them, let's be honest. they're rubbish. And there are other companies that are a lot better. And I know full well that if I walked up to facilities, university, and said, look, this isn't working, but I've looked at this company, they cost this much to install, here's a shared revenue agreement, can we make this work? Surely that's a step at least in the right direction to think about other places than Circuit.
Thank you. Thank you to all the candidates. You may now leave the stage. If I could invite the candidates for VP Union Development up, please. I see one. I see two.
People change, but not the same as we started.
What?
When I'm running away.
To who?
You or Will, get it?
Though we're trying to stay ahead, we're just treading water. When love don't feel right, we get along and along on the outside. Light up the door, but our hearts on the inside.
Martin, if you're about, can you come to the stage, please?
Just on camera, I saw it. My bad. Do you want to do the speech? It's not hard. It's possible.
Won't do this again. Don't take that the wrong way. You know what I mean. Ours ain't gonna.
A lot of people do know about it.
Lie.
So, yeah. Do I do another loud whooping reminder?
Yeah. Just before they sit down. Do the boring stuff and be like, hey, but anyway, how's people getting on with their bingo?
Right, if everyone could take their seats again, we will get started. Just a reminder, no loud whooping, please. Let's try and keep this as accessible as possible. Aside from that, how are people doing with their bingo? I count at least 3 I've got so far. 4.
Oh.
Cool. Keep going with it. Right, let's get this started. If I could invite Martin up to speak first. Literally, the last words I just said. Literally.
Sorry. Thank you. Thank you.
When you're ready,
Hi, my name is Martin and I'm running to be your next VP of Union Development. So I'm running for this role because I think everyone deserves, a fantastic university experience, one that they really truly want and really deserve. So, and this role plays a very large part in that. So our union's currently run as a democracy, so I want to encourage more people to voice their opinions, and then our union can be truly student-focused and democratic. I also believe that our students' union, along with the JCR, should be more political. So given the current strikes, I think we need to be on the side of our students, so, having our students' backs, To ensure all of this, I want to best the line of communication between staff, students, and the JCR. So I've previously served as a vice president for Cartmel, sorry. So I fully appreciate the amount of work our JCRs do, and I really want to continue improving the training and development that our officers get, so particularly improving the term time training for co-opted officers. I also think we need to make sure our JCRs are fully supported throughout the entire year, because they're students just like you and me. Our college JCRs also suffer with sometimes a low voter turnout, and sometimes we struggle to fill positions, especially here in Cartmel. So I think our Students' Union needs to emphasise exactly what our JCRs are about and exactly what they do and how important they are. Also, I'd really like to continue, work more closely with our careers-based services and our teams here to, because they can really push, just give me a sec. So they can really push, the benefits and all the transferable skills you gain from the JCR position. And as a lot of you are aware, Sugar has faced some uncertainty about its future in the last year, so I want to continue fighting for the survival of Sugar House, and hopefully in the future we can have it as a student-led venue. This basically involves clubs, societies and JCRs, taking space.
Time, thanks.
Next up, we have Matty.
Hello everyone, I'm Matty Robinson, a third-year English language and linguistics student running to be your next Vice President for Union Development. I'm running for the role because I believe I've got the experience to do the role really well. I am currently a society president. Last year I was filed Vice President of Socials and Events and I ran extra last year. And I'm currently a team member at the Sugar House, so I feel like I have a comprehensive knowledge of the union from all sides. I want to use this experience to improve the Students' Union and the student experience here at Lancaster. I'll split my policies into 3 major areas of VPUD. So firstly, for the colleges, I want to continue to support officers to make sure they feel supported when they're running events and campaigns. I want to increase and improve the communication between the Students' Union and the JCR, so JCRs feel supported at all times. I would like to increase the budget for big events such as XREV so that the big events that we all look forward to are even better than they already are. In terms of democracy and governance, I'd like to work with the democracy officers within the JCRs to create an action plan for the elections so that we have a higher voter turnout and a higher candidate turnout as well, because we have a lot of elections where people don't run or the roles are uncontested. I also want to ensure that the democratic process is always simple and open so that everyone can get involved. For the commercial services, I want to work with the Sugar House to have more innovative and diverse events so that we get different student groups into Sugar, and this will hopefully help with the low turnout that we have on Saturdays currently. I also want to help fight for the survival of the Sugar House with the building projects that are going on currently.
30 seconds.
Finally, a passion project of mine this year would be to work with LGBTQ+ society, PTOs, and the Vice President of Welfare and Community to make LGBT History Month an even better and bigger month than it has been already. I'd appreciate your votes later this week. I'm Matty Robinson, Vice President, Union Development. Thank you.
And lastly, we have Luke.
Hey everyone, my name's Luke Smith and I'm wanting to be a VPUD. So my experience at university so far, I've been VP for Socials and Events with Grisdale, been a social sec and was on the intro week team in my first year, and I've also been social sec for the Baking Society. Represent baking's a great way to let off steam. So what I really want to do is focus on a few key areas that I believe are really important. The first one being the Sugar House. So obviously the Sugar House is a massive part of every student's experience here at Lancaster. Whether you attend it or not, you've got friends who attend it and everyone knows what it's about. So the Sugar House currently is really popular on certain weeknights, and what we need to do is just build on that. So what we need to do is listen to what is really popular at the moment, take account of what attendance is being recorded on these specific nights and themes, and really serve to use that as a base of data, build on that, and put more themes and acts on that appeal to as many people as possible. More than that, we need to make sure that the Sugar House is a fun and safe place to be. So I want to work with the VP for Welfare and just make sure that when students go to the Sugar House, they feel safe and they feel like they can go, and no matter what, they can have a good night there. Secondly, it's making sure that all students are engaged with their JCRs and with their students' union. So currently, we've got a voter turnout across the board of no more than 30 to 40%, and we really do need to push those numbers up, because that basically just means that more students aren't engaging as are. So we need to really get students involved from the get-go, from Freshers Week, really paint the JCRs and Students' Union in a positive light. And finally, a matter of transparency. We need to make sure that students are well aware of how decisions are made within Students' Union, and to make sure that they know that they can take part in those decisions and that they can get the answers and their questions answered that they need to, and really air their grievances before they become massive problems.
Thank you to all the candidates. We'll now open it up for questions. Don't forget, you can tweet your questions at #VoteFest18. Let's start with Paolo down here at the front.
Hi everyone. For us JCR members, and particularly this year I believe I'm speaking for all the presidents in the room, you guys are the first point of contact in the union. VPUD usually is. The question I'd like to ask is, how are you guys going to deal with quickly, quite short turnaround requests from not only on behalf of us presidents, but on behalf of most JCR officers, especially when the VPUD schedule is so tight, as Cass, I'm sure, will tell you?
If we start with Matty in the middle and then make our way around.
Hello. Hi, Paolo. So I guess it's just about being an open source, always being available, when possible. I know the schedule is tight, so it's always going to be hard, but it's listening and prioritizing which issues seem more important at the time and which you can deal with quickest. I think priority and prioritization will be key.
Thank you for your question, Paolo. I think what needs to happen is the VPUDs need to be well aware of what's going on in the JCR throughout the process. We don't want to be overbearing, but we need to know what's going on. And in such a case, there needs to be you guys coming to the UD just with all the ideas you have, so that we can help identify as an outside perspective what could possibly go wrong. And so there is less an opportunity for issues to arise last minute for you to have to manically deal with, and for us to have to do so as well.
Could you repeat the question, please? So I think first priority is improving the line of communication. I also want to ensure that all JSLs and colleges, they're treated the exact same way, so there's no sort of any college gets priority over another college, but I think it's just making sure you're well aware that, we're here for you. You can message us anytime, you can get in contact anytime, and I'll try my best to make sure I'm always available, always answering your questions and making sure everything's done. Cheers.
Thank you. Any other questions from the room? Okay, let's take Donnie, Josh, and then the gentleman at the back there.
So in the spirit of sort of continual development, how would you improve on what Cass has done this year? And if you think there's anything to improve on.
So Cass has made a real effort to change the way that Big Night Out is done, and also to change the format. So tried, Big Night Away, which is an idea that we floated. Just more on top of that, Cass did really well in terms of being there for Intro Week, and I want to be a big part of Intro Week planning, making sure that the JCRs and the SU come across really well and engages the students from their first instance at university. But other than that, Cass has done a really good job so far.
So yeah, Cass has done an amazing job. So I do want to better the training and development, especially during term time for our co-opted officers, because the feedback that I've gotten is that a lot of them feel like once I co-opted in January, they've not had the same sort of line of communication, they've not been informed as well. So yeah, just being more transparent. Yeah.
I think something Cass has done really well this year is his relationship with the colleges and the JCRs. So that is something I'd look to improve and just continue really. Be close relation, like close ally of all the JCRs. Be on a first name basis, not just an email. So yeah.
Thank you. Josh?
So the VPUD, along with the President, is director of both of the union's trading services or trading companies. So what would you do if elected as VPUD to improve some of the commercial services that the union offers?
Could you repeat the question, please?
What would you do to improve the services, the commercial services, sorry, that the union offers?
Probably more feedback from students, how they, sort of, the only way to improve it is to have more transparency. So we might think we know the best sort of answer to improve it, but then if we listen to more people, if we take on board more thoughts and opinions, then I think we can truly improve it. There's always room for improvement.
So in my manifesto, I speak about specific points about diversifying events in sugar, so that's obviously an idea I've already spoke about. In terms of Purple Card, I'd like to just continue to ensure that the offers that are there are like relevant and used by students and promoted well, so that a lot of people are getting the benefits of it. Yeah.
So as the other candidate said, making sure that the Sugar House remains relevant and that the themes and acts are still things that students want. Also, on the other side, making sure that Living and Central stores are serving students as they should. We, at the end of the day, serve the students, and we need to make sure that the offers we have at Central, as Matty said, and also that Living is there for the students and making sure that their experience here is as easy and convenient as possible.
Cool. Did Hazel have a question before we move on, or was I seeing things? Cool. Over there at the back then.
As well as making sure students engage in the union's democratic structures, a big part of your job is making sure they engage in their local democracy as well. So I've got a few quick questions to check your competency on that. So what's the names of your Uni Ward City Councillors? When are the next full set of City Council elections in Lancaster? And what are you going to do to make sure students vote in them?
If we start with Matty this time.
Hi. So I'll be honest, I don't know the names of the city councillors. Or maybe specifically the next date. I believe it's next May, but I could be wrong there. But more importantly, what would I do to help promote the elections? I'd like to work with people who already know more than I do. The councillors, the the societies that are political, and the people within the students' union as well, to promote the elections. Higher turnout.
So I'm in the same boat as Matty, where I don't particularly know the names of the councillors, nor the next election date. Because there's a by-election coming up this May, but I'm unaware as to whether it includes the Lancaster councillors. But more than that, is getting students involved. We have an obligation to disseminate information to students and make sure that they are fully informed of the decisions that they make in terms of local and national elections. And so we need to be there to provide the resource for them to understand each and every political party and which is best for them.
So first and foremost, I think everyone needs to know that everyone's opinion, everyone's vote matters. So they really people shouldn't be put off by voting. So I think it's just encouraging more people to get out there to vote, to voice their opinions, because sometimes people feel like, I'll vote something, but I might not get my, vote or opinion across. But, every single opinion, every single vote matters.
Yeah, did you have a question at the back first, or? Yeah. This is going to be terrible.
What are your plans regarding the Sugar House situation? Thank you.
If we start with Luke this time.
I'm going to go ahead and assume you mean kind of it's on the threat from the local developments going around. Yeah. So what that requires is really somebody fighting in the corner of the Sugar House, making sure that the person who gets a job understands the threats it faces from the local developers and from the building works around it, and also the threats from the city council. And people, the UD needs to be there fighting its corner against the development agencies and against the council, making sure that they understand that it is an integral part of not only the university and the students' experience, but also of the city.
So the idea of a student-led venue, so I would take on board a full-time student-led social program manager who would communicate and listen to clubs, societies and individuals who would decide what events are put on. Students would be able to reclaim their space basically. Lancaster is such a diverse university, so it's only appropriate we listen to as many voices as we can.
So I think a large part of this is educating students so that they're always aware of what the next step is, or like what has just happened, what's happening with the Sugar House. At the minute I haven't heard much since the last set of petitions that went out, and I work there, so I think there could be more to be done. There's more to be done to disseminate the information and make sure everyone's aware of what's happening. Also, like, the petitions worked well, but I think either more needs to be done or just, again, education and then speak with the students, come up with some sort of campaign.
Cool. Thank you. Blue hoodie down here at the front.
Hi. So we've heard lots tonight about what needs changing, but what's one specific aspect of the Students' Union that you think works well and as a result you wouldn't change?
I'd probably say the sort of diversity, the involvement. I think our Students' Union is amazing. It does so much for our students. I've interacted with it so much. It's supported me so much. I nearly got kicked out of university in my second year, so having that support, knowing that it's there for you, it's an amazing feeling. It helps you so much.
For me, I think the college system is like very, very good as it is, and I think the minor changes that could happen is not as much as changes that could happen, larger changes within the union.
I personally think that it's the accessibility in terms of both the JCRs and the Students' Union. The FTOs, they really make an effort to be visible and to get students to know that they can always come to them in case they have any questions or queries. But equally, in everything we did as a JCR, we constantly tried to involve as many people as possible and increase accessibility. And I think that's one thing that we do really well.
Cool, thank you. We've had a question from Twitter, so I'll do that, and then I see two more, and then that'll be it, I'm guessing. Okay. Do you feel you can engage people who don't drink alcohol in events at Sugar to increase turnout? If we start with Matty in the middle.
As a non-drinker myself, I understand the going out and not drinking is, it can still be fun. I still do go out. So I think it's speaking to people about these, things like that, you can still go out and have fun without, having to drink. But also, different events for people who don't drink can work. Not everything has to be alcoholic and driven, by drinking. So it's finding events that maybe strike a chord between them both.
Yeah, again, this extends to enabling the JCRs to put on more events that don't involve drinking. I know when I was on JCR, we constantly tried to create events alongside some of the societies on campus that involve them coming to Grisdale and engaging with our students in a way that didn't involve alcohol. Also using the Sugar House as a space for more events other than just nights out. I mean, an example of that was just the laser tag event that goes on at Sugar House. That's a brilliant way to use that space, but also doesn't involve drinking.
So the whole idea of my student-led venue is to allow individuals, groups and societies, to suggest ideas, to basically use the space whichever way they want. Even societies. My friend who did LU pole fitness in first year, the society struggled with finding, a place for the actual event, so they use bars in different places. And I think it's a great off-campus event which makes it more accessible to more people. So yeah, it should be open to pretty much anything, not just, you know, a piss up on a night out.
Cool, thank you. Just before the next question, if there are any Cartmelians on the trip to Leeds, please go to the bottom car park where the coach is waiting for you. Thank you. Molly, you've got a question?
Hi, as the sort of main representative for JCRs, I know you talk about support for the JCRs, but you've not really spoke about Freshers Week, which is probably the toughest week for JCRs. So please, would you sort of inform us on what your plans are to better support JCRs in this stressful week, and how you would sort of change what's currently in place, which doesn't really seem to be working for a lot of JCRs. Thank you.
So I know that a lot of the JCRs that organise, members of JCR aren't around in Lancaster while they're organising Freshers Week. And so the FTOs need to be available online, through email, through Facebook, through whatever medium that the JCRs use, to be there to answer questions and to provide support. But as well as that, there needs to be more of a presence during Freshers Week. I mean, just even any of the FTOs going around during the days and the nights, making sure that the JCRs know they're there and that they can come to them at any point and ask them questions, provide support in case of, you know, lost freshers, for example.
Thank you.
So I think, yeah, going from Luke's point, I think our students' union needs to have more of a presence. It is a massive responsibility. It's a lot of pressure, and I think they need much more support from our students' union. They need to be there constantly. They don't just need to be like, oh yeah, you can do this, you can do that, but they need to be like hands-on, interacting. You know, students' union are at all the welcome weeks, but no one knows why they're really there. Like, we sort of need to have more of an emphasis on, you know, what we are, what we do, and why we're here.
I think we all know that Freshers Week really is not just a 9-to-5 thing, so anyone who gets this position needs to be available online at all times to be able to like help and answer things, not even just online, like being there physically as well. I'd like to speak with the presidents currently and previous presidents to see like what more could have been done by previous UDs in order to change the system, because it's hard to change just like from us. Like, it's feedback from people who've been there and done it that will inform like better changes.
Cool, thank you. We'll take one last question if there is one. I see George.
So you all talked about improving the Sugar House. Can you give me one way you would actually improve the Sugar House?
Okay, so Saturdays are quite a bad night, so I think we need to have some proper headliners, like massive headliners, not one where you know, I don't know. I think people will be more interested in going. If also the events are more of a fringe night, they're more diversified, so like Dalton's did a K-pop night the other night, because people go out on Wednesday and Friday, they're more interested in just going out, whereas if you give someone a reason to go out, you know, diversify the events, work with societies, clubs and groups, you can really, you know, look at changing it.
I agree. Saturday is the main issue in Sugar currently. It's very, very dead usually on a Saturday. So I think it's working with societies or especially international students who are probably the least engaged with Sugar to maybe bring cultural events to Sugar, such as like the K-pop night, which has been popular in Dortmund, so also popular in Lonsdale Bar last term. So I think using just like very different events to get different groups of people out, because it is the same people who go out every week.
So a lot of emphasis is placed on getting DJs and you know, similar acts into the Sugar House. And while they do work really well and they draw crowds, a lot of the time it's the same thing. So I think if we had just more of a variety of events, not just getting societies in, but also getting different types of acts in, from, you know, bands, Battle of the Bands is House of Sugar, that's really good. Just more acts, physical acts coming in, performing at the Sugar House and giving people more to do there than just listen to a DJ play set.
There's a question from Twitter that I'd quite like to ask before we finish up. How do each of you view the function of a union, and how does this affect the way you want to shape the Students' Union here at Lancaster?
I view a union as just a collection of people. So as a students' union, we're a collection of the students, and we are the voice of the students. So I guess this affects my campaign and how I'd like to act if I was elected as UD, because I would like to always have student feedback about the issues that are affecting them, which would impact how I, like, my priorities as UD.
So the Students' Union is there to represent the interests of students, not only with the university as a whole, but also against the local stakeholders. So that includes, the businesses in town, the local council, the sugar house. We need to take students' opinions on board before we make a decision to do anything involving, whether it be local elections, plans to implement new policies. And we are there to represent the students and to make sure that their views are heard in everything that we do.
So one thing that really works with our Students' Union is the unity and collaboration of all the diverse groups, individuals and societies in Lancaster. I think it's a beautiful gathering of different people, different opinions, different voices. So I really want to continue engaging with all of that and just making sure everyone's heard.
Cool, thank you. Thank you to all the candidates for Vice President Union Development. Oh wait, debate, I forgot this again, my bad. So open up to all of you to ask questions to one another now. Anything?
I'll start with Luke. So you mentioned that voter turnout is low. What practical plans do you have for changing this?
So I think I mentioned it, it's in my manifesto, but what we really need to do is engage students from the minute they arrive in Freshers Week. So just making sure that they're aware of how their JCRs work for them, how the Students' Union works for them, and to really provide a positive presence during Freshers Week and in the first few weeks. Because those are important in how people view both their JCRs and the Students' Union. So if they feel like both those institutions are working for them, they're going to be more inclined to be involved going forward, and hopefully they'll know that they can make a change should they decide to run.
Anything else from any of the other candidates?
Yeah, I've got one for Matty. So we've all, to a certain extent, mentioned in our manifestos how we plan to change the way that funding is done for extravs. So this is really to both of you. How do you intend to do that in a practical way?
I don't want to make the mistake of mentioning like a practical plan now that won't work in office. So I think it's about working with the people in the Students' Union who have the power to change the funding structure of extrav. So in the past it's been mentioned about maybe using college profit to fund like an additional pot of money, but then this isn't fair across colleges because like FNS, for example, don't charge for freshers packs, so they're always going to make less profit than FILE who do. So it's working with the people who know how to make the change within the Students' Union to make the change.
I do agree with increasing the extrav budget to an extent, but I think speaking to lots of JCRs and you guys, you've both planned extras, it's been a fantastic night, so I don't think we need to worry too much about increasing the budget, but I think we could relax the rules on how much the SER contribute to our budget. If it's, for example, when I planned my extrav, they invested quite a lot of money, but it was for stuff that we could reuse in the college, so it's not just disposable stuff, it's stuff that that further future JCRs can continue using and for future extras.
Any other questions? Nope, thank you very much. Now we are going to a break. If we give a big round of applause to the UD candidates, and see you in 10 minutes. Hello, welcome back to the next part of Hustings. Next up we have the candidates for VP Campaigns and Communications. So let's kick this off. Let's begin with Beth.
Hello, Barker House Farm. Oh, that's very loud. My name is Bethany Crow. I'm a third-year politics student. I'm running to be the next Vice President Campaigns and Communications. During my time in Lancaster, the union has really helped shape my experience here through student media, where I've been really involved with Bailrig and Scan, including being the editor at the moment. And I also work in the union on the solutions team, dealing with all the problems that students come to with as a first point of contact. These experiences have given me the experience to hold the university to account and also make sure that students have their voices heard. My manifesto has 6 points. I'm just going to run through them all really quickly. The first 2 are to run campaigns. The first one is a cost of living campaign. It's something that all the candidates tonight are talking about. For me, cost of living is as much down to the day-to-day cost as it is about tuition fees. So I'd really like to focus on that in my campaign, showing how students can save money on a day-to-day basis and hopefully lobby the university to spend its money better on its current students rather than doing things like investing in the massive screen that's currently going up in Alex Square. My second campaign is a Healthy Body, Healthy Mind campaign. I'd like to build on the really great work that's been done this year with the mental health campaign to look at the links between sport and mental health. I'd also like to use this campaign to fill the void that's been left by the Just Play scheme. Not off-putting at all. To fill the void that's been left by the Just Play scheme working with the VP activities. My next point is to have all FTOs hold an open office hour. This is to improve communication channels between students and the officers they elect. I feel that a lot of students don't feel that they're properly represented by their officers.
30 seconds.
And this would also help with accountability. My next point is to run a student media-focused work experience scheme. The union has loads of media contacts from the conferences that it puts on. So does student media. We could be using these better. My next point is to improve construction communications. There's loads of construction work going on campus. It affects us on a day-to-day basis. Better communications would mean it affects us less. Finally, I'd like to empower all students to run grassroots level campaigns through a DIY toolkit and on-hand officer support.
That's time, candidate.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Isla.
Hi everyone, my name's Isla Grant and I'm running for the role of VP Campaigns and Communications. If elected, I want to use my experience of studying marketing and working in various social media roles within the university, such as on the file communications officer and being online communications for the Advertising Society, to work to increase the online engagement from students. I want to work with the various communications teams throughout university, be that the JCRs or the student media, as well as the university central teams, to ensure that all students are informed about all the news and events that's going around in Lancaster. One of my key things that I want to implement is a campaign based on small changes that make a big difference to students' day-to-day lives. Something I've noticed quite a lot is there's not an affordable, healthy lunch option around campus, so it would be finding a way that we can make healthier lunches affordable for students. Another thing that bothers me is a lot of students can't cook, especially cheap, healthy lunch meals. So working with students to find an initiative to teach students how to cook, just simple, easy meals. I want to work to secure the future of student media groups, so be that working with the student media to ensure that they're involved with any decisions that are made regarding their future so that the best plans are put in place for them. Finally, I'd like to introduce an equivalent of the social and events group, or SEG, that's in place with one of the full-time officers and the socials officers from the JCRs. So that's bringing together the college JCR communications officers with the student media, maybe on a fortnightly basis, to increase cross-promotion throughout university and ensure that all events are promoted as effectively as they can be. Thank you.
Thanks, crew.
Yeah, hold on. Hi guys, for those that don't know me, my name is Laura, although my flatmates know me by the nickname Lulu, and that is the name I am using in my campaign. So my campaign has 4 main points. The first point being I will run a health and wellbeing campaign, building upon the work Laura has done this year, and that is on the bingo, so there you go. And so this is something I am particularly passionate about because I am the current president of Lancashire Mind Fundraising Society, but I've also been through the counselling service here at university, so I really want to strive to prevent mental health illnesses arising within students, and the way I want want to do this is to promote techniques such as mindfulness, and from going on a mindfulness course myself, I can really vouch that the benefits it brings, but I will also promote other wellbeing techniques such as good sleep and good nutrition, and finally I will work with the university counsellors to get students access to a mobile application known as Silver Cloud, so students get support and advice from the comfort of their own home. Now, it's also been mentioned tonight that on-campus essentials such as groceries, laundry and printing are all becoming very expensive, so I will run a campaign with a very simple aim to make the university reduce these costs wherever possible, but I'll also promote offers such as Purple and give students budgeting advice just to make them save money. So it really saddens me that Lucy seems quite inaccessible and impersonable to some students. So I really want to celebrate weekly victories and make you as the students know the impact Lucy has on you on a weekly basis. And I really want to adopt an open door policy to make sure that you have access to the staff that you require. Now, I want to celebrate all of your voices, and I will run a Roses campaign that celebrates the whole diversity of talent here. So yes, please vote for me to help you. And yes, vote Lulu for Lucy.
Thank you. So we'll now open it up to the floor for questions. Let's begin with the current VP campaigns and comms. Laura.
So, given that clarity of communications with students has been a massive priority this year, with the change from LUSU to the Students' Union, what practical measures will you take to ensure that the Students' Union will produce fun and engaging communications next year?
So if we begin with Isla and then move our way down.
So I think it's a case of trying something new. So in the past, you've done really well with doing a lot of stuff in Alex Square, but I think the online side of things has been a bit more neglected. So trying something new online, so may that be like videos, getting people engaged, more polls and that sort of thing to get student feedback. I do obviously think it's really important to carry on doing the face-to-face stuff in Alex Square, but maybe partnering that with stuff that's online as well could be a good way to bring about something different.
So I'm going to challenge the point that Isla's just made. I think speaking to students is fundamental for engagement, and I think that's one reason why the Grow Our Minds campaign has been so successful, because it's had such a big presence in Alex Square, and students have had a chance to really go and talk to people, students have had a chance to make a conversation, and that is the fundamental reason why we're going to build engaging campaigns. It's fundamentally talking to the students and making sure that we meet their needs.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with what Lulu's saying. I think it is about going out and talking to students. I think that the pop-up union this year has been really successful, but I think that one of the reasons students perhaps haven't engaged with it as well as they could have done is because they haven't consistently known what the pop-up union is. So I think in working to kind of rebrand things more consistently in terms of that, that would definitely help with creating a more engaging campaign in terms of people actually knowing exactly what they are engaging with.
Cool. Any more questions from the room? Ooh, let's start with Michael over here, and then work our way back.
So you've all talked about the future of SCAN in your manifestos. I was wondering what's been your favourite and least favourite article in SCAN in the time that you've been here, and why?
We'll start with Lulu this time.
Okay, so my favourite article, can I say today's article with regards to the elections? My least favourite article will be, I guess, with regards to the university strikes.
So, I'm not the biggest SCAN reader. I've taken that as one of my weaknesses, that I'll admit. I did read cover to cover the SCAN today, because I was in it. But, yeah.
obviously, as I mentioned in my host, I've been very, very involved with SCAN. I think as editor right now, it would be really unfair for me to point out what I think my favourite ever article has been, because the diversity of articles that we have is amazing. Every single article has its own merit. I think my least favourite article is probably the first one that I wrote, to be honest with you, because it was not the best, but SCAN's really helped me come on in my writing and will help other students come on in more than just their writing in terms of their university experience in general.
Cool. Any more questions? I can see hands. Grishma, next.
Hello. This year's Grow Our Mind campaign, which was created by Laura Wilkinson, has been remarkably successful. Do you think you have the potential to make it bigger and better for next year? And if so, how?
If Beth starts and then work our way down.
I mean, I can only hope that I have the potential to do it. Admittedly, my campaigns experience is somewhere where I'm perhaps a little bit lacking. I think the comms side of things is where I've got more experience, but I think from the engagement that I've had with the union and with the campaign that's been run, I think that I can take that on board and use it to develop my own ideas into hopefully an equally successful campaign, if not a more successful one.
Yeah, so I agree. The Grow Your Minds has been very successful this year. I think one of my key campaigns that I want to run was like the healthy lunches. So I believe that would be building on and expanding what's already been put in place. So like having a healthy, cheap lunch that people can have to set them up for their day instead of just going to Sultan's for a cheap, like rubbishy lunch. So I think that would build, like Laura's set a really good platform to be able to expand on. So I'd have the next year to be able to expand on what she's already done and put in place.
So I do have campaign experience. So my placement year at IBM, I ran campaigns, and also I am running a campaign with the Running Society, which is a Healthy Body, Healthy Mind campaign, similar to what Bethany's proposing. And I think this expertise will really allow me to add value to what Laura has created with the Grow Our Minds campaign. But I'm also very genuinely passionate about this area. Being president of a welfare society and going through things myself, I really feel that this knowledge and experience will really allow me to add value.
Cool, thank you. We'll just pop over to Twitter for a question. Okay. How do the candidates feel about the removal of VP camps and comms from Uni Council that happened last year, especially when combined with this year's abolition of University Court? If we start with Isla, then Lulu, and then Bethany, please.
So I don't know the reasoning behind the role getting removed from it, but there obviously was a reason. So I think long term, if like reviewing the decision, if it's a decision that's been made for like a greater purpose and it's been effective, then keeping the decision in place. However, because it's been a year or two ago, actually like reviewing the decision and seeing whether it's something that needs to be changed and put back onto it.
I agree with Isla on this one. I think a decision needs to be made. We need to review the decision, see if the role needs to be instigated again, if so, why, and also need to look at the responsibilities of the role, see where those responsibilities are disputed, and if they're disputed fairly, and if not, why not, and then see if this role needs to be instigated again.
I think I agree with Isla to a certain extent. If the role has been removed for a valid reason, then it's been removed for a valid reason. I think in terms of the abolition of uni court, that's kind of putting us in a situation where it's less easy for us to hold the university to account. And as an officer team next year, we're really going to have to fight, well, whoever forms the officer team is going to have to fight really, really hard to make sure that they're doing that. But I think that as long as we can do that as a team, then we'll fulfill the roles that we're meant to, and the abolition of uni court hopefully won't affect us too much.
Cool, thank you. We'll take questions from the room now. There was a couple of hands at the back that I saw first. So, here. Yeah, here. And then we'll move around.
You have talked a lot about your campaigns, but you will also have to work a lot with student media. What are your plans for working with the student medias, and have you talked to station managers or editor about how you could work together?
So, if elected, I will support all 4 student medias, and I will admit, spoken to any of the station managers yet, but if elected, I will endeavour to build a really strong relationship with them to make sure that I can carry out my campaigns to the best of their ability, and make sure that all the students will hear my campaign and will basically engage all the students with my campaigns.
I mean, hopefully the experience I have with SCAN speaks for itself on this one. I love student media. It's vibrant and amazing, and it does so much good work, and I think that the thing we really need to focus on is celebrating that. This year we've had lots of collaborative meetings between the 4 student medias, discussing ways that we can work together. I'd really like to build on that next year. I know I talked about this in a lot more detail in my bail rig debate, so I'll just hopefully direct you to listen to that. But yeah, collaborative student media. Student media is great, yes.
I think I said before that one of my key things that I'd want to do when I start the role, if I get the role, would to become someone that's not just an email address or someone behind a Facebook page for the student media. So actually going out and continuing what you said, setting up collaborative meetings and actually going out and speaking to people and putting a plan in place to see where it's going to go over the next year.
Thank you. We'll take one more question from the room, and then we've got a couple of online questions. So, I see the hand right at the back that's been up for a while. Oh. Right at the back I saw a hand. That's the one I saw first, so I'm going to go with that one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, there are various student media such as SCAN, LA1 TV and Bail Rig. Why have they all got such low circulation, and what would you do to amend that problem?
I mean, low circulation is an issue in student media. I think that what we perhaps need to look at different ways of the student media is engaging with the student body. For example, this year in SCAN, I'm focusing on developing a new website and have managed to secure us some funding from the Friends funding scheme. I believe that in doing this across all student medias and looking at alternative ways of how people consume content, that's the best way for us to increase our engagement and to continue making very exciting, relevant content for students that students care about.
I think what the student media are already doing is very, very good. So it'd just be building upon what they already have done. I mean, my degree, I'm literally studying marketing. I do it day in, day out. So it's something that I'm well versed with, especially online. So I've had proven track record of increasing engagement, increasing followings. So I think what we've got already, like SCAN, we've still got it in print, it's doing really well. That's an advertising in itself, but building more on the online side of things. As well with Take Two Cinema.
Time.
Yeah.
So I agree with what Bethany's highlighted. I think it's understanding where students engage and moving forward with this, whether that means taking SCAN off print and online because students are reading it that way. And it is generating content which students really engage with and generating really exciting content. And yes, I think that is the way that all 4 student media should go moving forward.
Thank you. We'll take one last question from Twitter, and then we'll move on to the debate. How do you feel the union can explain the role of the FTO through communication campaigns with the student body? If we start with Isla, and then move our way.
Can you say it again? What was the question?
Yep. How do you feel the union can explain the role of the FTO through communication campaigns with the student body?
Okay. So I think kind of building upon the, what are they called? The candidate academies that they have before run up to elections. So something based along those sort of lines. So actually bringing students face to face with officers saying, this is what I do day in, day out. This is my role. This is my responsibilities. So yeah, bringing more communication with the students and informing them what they actually do.
Could you repeat the question, sorry?
Yes. How do you feel the union can explain the role of the FTO through communication campaigns with the student body?
So fundamentally, I think one fundamental area of the comms role is speaking to students. So I think hosting what is going to be in a couple of weeks, like an AGM, talking to students, getting them their opinions, and then carrying them forward in campaigns, and make sure they engage with the media is a very fundamental reason which could be with the role moving forward.
One of my campaign points is to introduce office hours. So I think through FTOs holding office hours, students will hopefully get a better understanding of exactly what it is the FTOs do. I do think that there's kind of a misconception that FTOs don't properly represent students, and I imagine a lot of that comes from a lot of students not understanding what FTOs do. I think that improving engagement, improving pop-up unions, encouraging students more to come in and talk to the officers, I think would go a long way to kind of explaining what it is we will actually be doing.
Cool, thank you for that. There were quite a few more questions, but due to time restrictions, we will move on to the debate. I encourage all the candidates to respond to those questions on Twitter, and if you've got any questions, I'm sure the candidates will be more than happy to respond to them if you come up and ask them. So let's move on to the debate now. I will open it up to the candidates to question one another.
Obviously, I've said a lot that student media is something I'm super passionate about. Obviously, the experience that you guys have of student media is perhaps not as significant as mine is, and indeed the FTOs that have come immediately before me. So I'm quite interested to know how you're going to continue to support student media, and especially Lulu in terms of saying that if Scan might go out of print, a lot of people aren't going to be happy about that. So I'd just like to know what, me included, I'd just like to know kind of what your response to that is.
So yes, I will admit I don't have that much experience with student media, but I do have experience running campaigns. I've run very successful campaigns before, which not necessarily you two both have. I will endeavour to build strong relationships with the student media. So I will talk to all the station managers, I will talk to the editor of Scan and make sure that my campaigns are run successfully, but I'll also talk to them to make sure that they're carried forward successfully and that students engage in them in the best possible way.
Yeah, same as Lulu. One of my main things would be to actually go out and make the connection with the different managers. I stand with Bethany saying that Scan should stay in print, and I really want it to stay in print because it's something that makes Lancaster Lancaster. We've got a newspaper. So continue building on the good work that the student media have done. Question? Okay. So Bethany, in your manifesto, I feel like the job is pretty much split in half between student media and college communications officers and the JCRs. You don't really mention or highlight anything towards the JCRs at all. So I feel like with my role on the JCR, I didn't really get a lot or / anything from the FTOs or Students' Union. How would you make sure that, again, your role doesn't fall just on the student media and you also focus on the JCRs?
Having spoken to quite a few JCRs already, I've expanded on a couple of my manifesto points that I believe are going to be really helpful for JCRs. So the office hours that I'd like to run, I would think they will encourage better channels of communications between JCRs and the whole officer team. The campaign toolkit that I'd like to use, I think, will be open to all student groups, so that includes societies, JCRs, so any campaigns that JCRs are looking to run, I'm happy to offer on-hand officer support with those.
So Isla, you mentioned your one campaign which you were planning to run. I was just wondering if you could explain to me basically how you're basically planning to implement this and the impacts this campaign is going to have on the student population, particularly with your lack of campaign experience.
So I think Laura, as I said, she set a really good platform to build upon. So one of the main things I want to do is obviously the healthier lunches for cheaper. So whether that's setting up a stand in the farmers market, for instance, saying even if it's just one day a week, and then also building upon that is teaching the students how to actually cook. So maybe actually having a separate thing in Alex Square, like a ready, steady cook type thing, like teaching healthy recipes. So
that's time.
Lily, in your campaign manifesto, you talk about creating a campaigns calendar, not a campaigns calendar, sorry, a calendar for societies to make things more accessible. I know it's not something you've touched on tonight, but I'm really interested in understanding what the difference between what you're proposing is and the current societies campaign, the current societies calendar that exists at the moment. I know I've spoken to the activity staff in the union who've said that a lot of the problems with that is societies not coming to them with the opportunities, but in addition to that, everything that you've kind of said about the campaign, about the calendar, in my mind completely already exists, so I just want to know how it's going to be different.
So I'm going to be completely honest here. I wrote this manifesto without even realising it exists, and I think that says a lot, the fact that I didn't even know it existed, so I think it needs to be better promoted. And from looking at it, the actual layout of it is quite confusing for students to navigate around. So I think we need to almost educate the students on how to use it. We need to change their behaviour. We need to make sure that they're using it every single day to make sure they know what societies are happening. So, Bethany, you mentioned in your manifesto about the grassroots campaign that you're planning to give to societies. I'm just wondering how you're planning on controlling this, so how you're planning on controlling what they're going to promote themselves, how you're planning on controlling the media they may produce.
I think that all our student groups here shouldn't really be like censored almost, because that kind of sounds what it's like you're suggesting. I think all student groups have been, they're affiliated to the union for a reason, because their group is valid and their views are valid. I'd like to kind of put it behind a sort of a closed door, so it is only accessible for approved student groups, so that extends to both societies and JCRs. I don't think it's necessary for us to completely control everything that's being produced. The SCAN team have full editorial control over it.
That's time, candidate.
I've got a question for Lulu. You mention in your manifesto about reducing the prices of like circuit laundry and the bus passes. They're both external companies, so Stagecoach and Circuit, and they've got much of a monopoly over students. You mentioned another point about doing, what's the word, a petition to change opinions of the uni. So apart from a petition, because I don't think a few names on paper is actually going to make changes, especially to external companies that are focusing on profit, like what would you do to change the prices?
So fundamentally, it's making the university listen. So if elected, I will understand the relationship the university has with these external sources. And by having the student backing and by getting the university to understand that the students are really passionate about this cause, then the university can put pressure on these companies, and that can have an impact.
How do you hope for students to show their support for that, though? Because, you know, we do have the petition system on the union website, but it doesn't work particularly effectively. You know, we've all sat here, and candidates before, and I'm sure after me, are going to say that that students aren't engaged enough with the union. So how do you plan on actually getting students together to put that pressure on when many things have already been tried that ultimately haven't worked?
That's also the last question.
So I'm going to continue what Laura has done really well this year with the Grow Your Mind, and go and talk to students, go and make sure that they're aware of the issue, go on the grassroots level, go and talk to them, go and speak to them, get them engaged with a particular issue, and yes, get them, I think that's fundamentally how to get them passionate.
Thank you very much to all the candidates for VP Campaigns and Communications. If we can have the candidates for VP Education up to the stage, please.
Didn't before, and all I've seen since 18 hours ago is green eyes and freckles and your smile in the back of my mind, making me feel right. I just wanna know you better know, you better know,
Right, let's kick off the next category, and that is Vice President Education. So if we begin with Ian Meeks. When you're ready.
Thank you. Ready, Cass? Yeah. Hi, everyone. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Ian Meeks, and I want to be your next VP Education. A little bit about myself. I'm a fourth-year integrated master's student with the physics department. So I've been through a lot of the academic process, and I know a lot of the flaws associated with it. I also work with a student union on the solutions team. So it's my job on a day-to-day basis to help students using student union services effectively. It also means I can help the students straight away if I do get VP education. Postgraduate students currently have an off-campus study space at the Stories in town. Based off the success of this, I'd like to trial an off-campus study space for all students. This will relieve stress on the library and other academic spaces across campus. I also want to encourage the use of JCR spaces as a means of studying. I think that they are not used currently from my experience. The black attainment gap is only just being investigated by the by the university, but not to a high enough level. I want to push the university to investigate this further. Simple means such as anonymous marking and unbiased training for academics can help resolve this problem. Students who have failed an element of their degree are often not helped, causing an avalanche of problems. I would like to introduce training for academics to help these students in these situations and create a pack.
30 seconds.
Thank you. That creates a pack to help students in this process. Hannah Laycock has done a brilliant job on the academic rep system. I want to carry this on further to help students be heard in student faculty forums. So I have much more that I would like to do. You can find this on my Facebook page, but I can only do this if I have your vote. I'm Ian Meeks, and I would like to be your next VP Education. Thank you for listening.
Next up, we have Sophie Grantham.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm running to be your next VP Education. I'm a third year Geography and Politics student and I have experience as an academic rep and a student ambassador here at Lancaster. So my manifesto is based on support, inclusion and employability. Firstly, in terms of support, I want to address the academic tutor system and make sure that it works for everyone so that everyone knows who their tutor is and has the opportunity to have meetings with them. I also want to improve the quality of feedback that students received on their assessed work, making sure that this quality is maintained across departments and faculties, and increase the availability as well as the advertisement of academic skills workshops, revision sessions and resit support. In terms of inclusion, I'd like to work with liberation groups on campus to identify the barriers that they face to academic inclusion and get them involved with academic campaigns. So one of the specific campaigns that I've highlighted in my manifesto is the Why is My Curriculum White campaign to pressure the university to address the BME attainment gap. And give the power to the wider student body to kind of question their curriculums and what they're learning. And also I'd like to reevaluate the way that the union associates with postgrad students to give them a stronger voice. So finally, in terms of employability, I want to diversify the opportunities that are presented at Careers Fair. And because the current focus is largely on grad schemes, and I think there's a lot of other opportunities that students could be kind of made aware of. And also, I think that there needs to be better advertisement of department services within, career services within departments. And I think it's also important that students know how they're developing employability skills throughout their degree. And I would like to work with students to identify the potential for more practical placement style modules that could be introduced. And last but not least, I would like to encourage better relationships between departments and their alumni, so students have the ability to contact former Lancaster students for advice on careers. So yeah, that's my manifesto. I've really enjoyed speaking to people over the last couple of days, and yeah, voting opens on Wednesday and I'd really appreciate your vote, so thank you very much.
Next up we have Charlotte John.
As your VP Education, I would tackle the issues that are important to you. Overcrowding, poor retention rates, and inequalities in career support are just some of the issues currently affecting the university. But I'm going to use my brief time with you today to discuss my approach to the role so you can understand how I would tackle such issues. First, I would like to work with staff, reducing the us versus them attitude so prevalent at most universities. Overcrowded teaching spaces, for example, are a problem for staff too. One proposed solution could see them have to double or even triple teach or work longer days or at weekends, and none of us want that. By working with these staff, we can also more effectively hold senior management to account, ensuring the needs of those on our existing campus are met. A good working relationship would also mean we could resolve issues students have with their teaching much more efficiently. I would also increase communication with students, all students that is, including those with particular needs such as PGR students, students with children and joint honours students, using comprehensive weekly reports which would include details of work in progress. Change is slow, but that doesn't mean it's not happening, and I would want to update students at every stage. I would also continue improvements to the academic rep system, not only ensuring that all students know how the system works, but also increasing the support and development opportunities given to reps. And as the PGT faculty rep for alums this year, I understand the current faults with the system, so feel I'm best placed to improve this. Lancaster is the third university I've attended, having completed my undergraduate degree in Wales with a year abroad in the USA, and this experience of multiple attitudes to student life means I can bring a fresh perspective. I have a good understanding of Lancaster systems, but I'm not locked into a certain way of thinking. Finally, it's worth remembering that each FTO is also a trustee of the union, which is of course a charity. Before I started my Masters, I worked at Children in Need for 2 years, so I already have a good understanding of charity governance, finance and operations, so I have the knowledge and experience to take on this important responsibility. There is no doubt that the year ahead is going to be a difficult one for higher education, so if you want someone who's experienced and realistic and can represent you through this change, please vote Charlotte John. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And last up, we have Uday Kalyani.
Good evening, all. I will just introduce myself. I am Uday Kalyani. I am born and brought up in India, and I did my bachelor's in mechanical engineering in 2012. So I've been working from last 5 years for automotive companies, and I'm here to do my master's. Now, my intention behind doing this VP is my own experience. It is not just me, but it is other students. Since now, in my batch, there are 62 students. So I'm doing mechanical engineering with project management, and I've experienced that we need a lot of change. We need change in terms of communication. We need change in terms of management of the modules. The education system here, it seems it is not industry oriented. Now people, they come here so that they can be employable. Now seeing the future, what I'm studying in master's here, that I've already done in my bachelor's. So I'm thinking we need to take a look that what syllabus, how it is planned, what are the sandwich courses, how it is decided that these are the courses. We are thinking of the university ranking. Now 2017, I checked the ranking, it is 137. 2018, it is 147. So the ranking is falling. Why? Because quality education. So students, they are coming here, but once they are here, they are getting surprises in education. And my intention is like no fake commitments, to be the voice of the students so that what they feel can be realized. At the moment, if I'm talking about the LUSU Vice President Education, even I was not aware, to be honest, that what I can do with the Vice President Education.
30 seconds.
So I need to, so I'm thinking on bridging the gap, at least you be with the students so that they understand what Vice President Education is for. And it would be fair to give me a chance, since I think I have got that experience of 5 years managing the teams. And also I have my own experience in the university, so I think I'm prepared to be your voice. Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool, so let's kick this off with some questions. Let's begin with a question from Twitter. How do you plan to improve the support for students with learning disabilities? If we begin with Sophie and then make our way down.
Is this, yeah, no, sorry. Yeah, so I think support for everyone is really important, and I think by having these conversations with students with learning disabilities, we'll be able to identify exactly what they want from their education and how we need to support them. But I think making things like lectures, lecture recordings, lectures more accessible to students with disabilities, and also library access, and obviously with the spine going on at the minute, workspaces in colleges like Cartmel, that's really important as well. So I think there are a range of different things, but I think...
That's time, candidate.
So all kind of support at the university is currently stretched really thin. I understand that recently funding has been cut for students with learning disabilities, for example. People with dyslexia can't pay for things like their dictaphones. So I think that's kind of unacceptable, especially when we've got millions of pounds going towards things like UA92 and Health Innovation Campus. So it's about identifying these needs and fighting the university to prioritise students on our existing campus who have these needs.
That's
because
time,
everyone
candidate.
should be
Thank you.
accessible.
So I'm thinking like no commitments here, since it is the problem with disability, so talk to them and get it solved. Rather, I'm not sure if I can give any stories, I will do this, I will do that, but the best way is to talk to them and understand what the problem is, and I think they themselves will give you the solution that this is what we are expecting. The way I think I'm doing as Vice President of Education, so I had a problem and I'm here for that solution. So I think that is the best way to talk to them. Thank you.
Can I start off by saying it's a great question. I think lecture recordings with Panopto really needs to be pushed by the university now. There are several universities that use it by every lecturer, and it's being used to great effect. So by training several lecturers to use these systems so there isn't any technical fear, I think will help students with disabilities who can't make it to the lectures, especially in weather like we currently have with the snow.
So if we begin with the current VP Education, Hannah.
Hello. So VP Education can be synonymous with being boring, and I've worked quite hard this year to make it more fun and more spicy and more sexy. So what's one thing that you would commit to as VP Education that is fun and engaging, and you will definitely have it done by the end of your year in office?
So to me, teaching, I want to be a teacher in the future. It's one of my passions. And students always get bored if you are boring. So yeah, I agree that you do need to be more engaging. My campaign video today, for those of you who don't know, is actually a Fresh Prince of Bel-Air parody. I want to do stuff like that people want to watch and want to engage with. Yeah, so something that they can relate to. But yeah, great question.
So I agree with Ian. It's important that students can engage with things that are presented by the union in terms of education. So I think academic campaigns are really important for getting students to actually engage that way. So I've mentioned in my manifesto, why is my curriculum white? But I'd like to run other academic campaigns with students to really give them the power back and you know, present the student voice to the university and engage students that way. So.
First of all, Hannah, you're not boring. Anyway, yeah, so hopefully I'm also not boring. If you've ever been to one of the faculty forums I co-chair, I've got loads of terrible jokes that no one laughs at, but at least I try. Also, I've got loads of public speaking experience with LA1 TV. But the one thing I want to commit to this year is making faculty forums more interesting, because I know at the moment people feel they're just given feedback and then given pizza and sent away. I want to make sure that it's an enriching experience for everyone, so that we all enjoy it, because I'm a rep too, I have to be there too. Thank you.
Regarding engagement of students with LUSU, I'm thinking is like we just be with them rather than being there in the office. Because that is my experience, is you be with the students, then they will talk to you. For most of the time, I think you are not approachable, and that is the problem. So we should be approachable to the students, and we can do that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions from the room? Ooh, that's a lot of hands. Let's go with Joe Walsh.
Hi. So I know, Sophie, you mentioned about feedback, but this is a general question anyway. So teaching comes from a limited resource, and so marking and feedback, it's done by your lecturers and postgraduate teaching assistants, and that's already kind of understaffed, and the student population is growing. How would you find a way to encourage better feedback if you can't get more money and more funding from this pot because the university has said this is a limited amount? And then also, how would you support your teaching staff, as I'm sure you're all aware that the things like the pension funds and the current strikes that are going on at the moment, how would you support the teaching staff?
So if we start with Charlotte this time and then work our way down.
Okay, this is a massive issue that's affecting everyone in the nation. I think the teaching staff are poorly funded and supported across the nation. Obviously, we've got to understand that they're already doing their best when it comes to feedback. One thing that really worries me is the rise in student numbers. The university seems to want to bring in more people without us having the resources, so I want to challenge that. I don't have a quick answer for that, because it's a really complex issue. But as someone who has my best friend in academics, teaching, things like that, I really understand the problem.
That's
so I want to work with staff
Thank you.
to support that. Thank you.
So in terms of how to improve feedback, I think it's really important that the marking criteria is explained to students before they actually embark on writing an essay or whatever the project they're doing. And then in the feedback, it can actually relate to the marking criteria so students know how to improve next time. And in terms of supporting staff, like Charlotte said, it's a really complex issue. I don't have like a one solution fits all approach, but I think it is really important that we do appreciate the time and effort that staff do put in at the minute.
That's time, candidate. Thank you.
So being part of the physics department, we have a very strong feedback score mark on the NSS survey at over 90%. We often get our worksheets back within 3 or 4 days. So I want to help use the physics department and how they run to use on other departments and create better communication between departments to help with feedback. In terms of teaching staff, I think I agree with the others. It's a difficult issue that needs to be looked into further first.
I think for the feedback, the current system says that there is a window of 7 days. So once you have done a module, there is just 7 days for you to feedback the lecturer or feedback about the module. So basically, that is the step where we need to improve is we need to increase the scale. It is not just 7 days, we need to make it throughout the year. Because studying a module, I will not understand in the 7 days what has happened. I need some time, I need to go through exams, I need to study, and then I will be able to comment or feedback lecturers to improve. So we need to increase the time scale for feedback system. Thank you.
Any more questions from the room? Okay, let's go with Alex and then down here at the front.
How do you personally feel about content warnings, and how would you help implement the already passed policy from the union that mandates you to support the implementation of content warnings across the university?
Let's begin with Uday and then work our way around. Alex, can you repeat the question, please?
I've been informed I talked way too fast.
Yes.
How do you personally feel about content warnings, and how would you help implement the policy that's already passed within the Students' Union that mandates you to help implement content warnings across the university?
What is this called? I don't know about that system, I'm really sorry. Like, I'm not aware of what that system is, so I cannot comment.
Hi, so content warnings to me are quite crucial. I think a lot of people in society today have had a lot of past experiences that can be triggered by certain events. So I do agree with them. I know English currently have some in place with some of the novels that they read. So yeah, again, with the communication between departments to help trial that system, I think would be a great idea.
Yeah, so I will also agree with content warnings. I think they're important for students who kind of need that. And also I think to implement it across the university, again, it's important to be having the conversation between the union and the department and how this can benefit students before they actually enter a lecture or study the material that needs it.
Some people claim that content warnings are they're not letting people kind of experience something and they need to kind of grow up.
the people who actually benefit from content warnings are the people who have been through stuff, who don't need to be protected. They're already tough and they've already been through that stuff. So I'm all for content warnings. I'm for free speech, but also I'm for, you know, having the right not to listen to the opinion, as well as everyone having the right to say the opinion. So yeah,
That's
content
time.
warnings are
Thank
great.
you.
Cool. Question down here at the front. Yep.
Hello. So often what this process is basically a glorified job interview. So I'm going to ask a fairly standard job interview question. Can you name one of your biggest weaknesses, and how are you going to make sure that this doesn't affect you in your role?
If we start with Ian and then work our way down.
So yeah, great question. I agree. I mean, we are getting interviewed by 15,000 interviewers. My biggest weakness is it sounds strange, but I put too much into things, and I can often lose track. So the way I would calm myself down and make sure I'm staying on track of what needs to be done is I would make sure I'm planning. That's the only. That's my major fault.
I think one of my biggest self-weaknesses is self-doubt and worrying a lot about things. So I think in order to kind of combat this, I'd want to kind of work closely with the team surrounding me and also with the students in the university. And I think kind of having these conversations will reassure me that I am communicating with the students and like doing what's best for them.
Thanks for that, Craig. My biggest weakness is, it's going to sound really horrible actually, it's caring too much. So when I was at Children in Need, I started for 5 weeks as a temp, ended up staying there for 2 years just because I wanted to do the job. I came here for a year and now want to stay another year just because I care about all the things I've learned through being a rep and want to improve that. And sometimes it's hard for me to switch off from that. So yeah, I'd need to take a step back and remember it's not the end of the world.
For me, my biggest weakness is I am not diplomatic. Like, I'm too much straightforward. So if someone asks me something without thinking, I just answer honestly, what is that? And most of the times I faced for being too straightforward. And yes, in my last project also, my team lead, I remember he told me that you are too straightforward and it will be difficult in future. So, but still, yes, I cannot be diplomatic. Thank you.
Cool, thank you. Laura, you've got a question?
Okay, so given there's been a lot of talk recently about the strike action, what would you do differently to the current Vice President of Education when it comes to industrial action?
We'll start with Sophie and then work our way down.
So I think I would like to push for a student vote on the issue. I know that was mentioned as a possibility, but I think it would have kind of shown the student voice to the university and voiced our opinions and kind of shown how many students do support our staff. I think that would have been a really good thing to kind of push for as well.
Having worked with Hannah during the strikes, I can say she's done a really good thing. I know that's probably going to get your bingo things, but she has communicated to the reps and fed that down so that we can feed back to the students. The one thing I would change is with PGR students, but I think that's more of a union issue. The kind of negative tone in which the unions release their statement. Obviously, we've got PGR students who are teachers, so we've got students who are affected by the strike as students, but also as people who are actually on strike.
Candidate. Thank you.
I think I would support with the strike to the staff, and the solution to this is I would think on having replacements, temporary replacements for them, and that is what we were missing. I remember in our department is when people were on strike, we had no one to answer. So yeah, I would support as well as have replacement for them. Thank you.
So I too work with Hannah as part of the solutions team. I know the stress she's been through and I admire her for that. What I would have done differently, I would have, again, as Sophie said, run a vote to see what the students' opinion is. But I do agree with the Students' Union's apolitical approach to it. At the end of the day, the Students' Union is for the students, and there are students who agree with the strikes, students who disagree with the strikes, so to take a side to me would be unfair.
Cool, thank you. We're going to take one last question from Twitter, and then we'll move on to the debate. So the last question is there anything you would do to improve the current academic rep system to benefit students, and if so, what and how? If we begin with Charlotte this time.
Okay, ways to improve the academic rep system. First of all, advertise it more so everyone knows how it works. Second of all, more development opportunities for the reps so they feel more empowered, that they can change things. More communication between faculty reps and academic reps so there's not a big gulf there. And really just empowering them all so they realise they're not just conduits to feed back up to the union, but they also have the power to change things themselves. And make faculty forums more fun. I've heard you. I will do that if you vote for me.
I think academic representatives at the moment, even they are like not easily, I could not see academic representatives available since I just saw a few days back in a department. So I think very important for us is to students to know who their academic representative is. And another thing is they should be accountable for what students they expect from them. Yeah, thank you.
So I agree completely with what Charlotte says, so I'm not going to bore you and repeat it. But in addition, I want to try and implement some form of email system for departments, such that it makes it easier for students to contact academic reps. I myself am not an academic rep, but I put a lot of research into the system beforehand, just to get to grips and get to the idea of how the academic rep system works.
So I agree with what's been said. I'd also like to improve the visibility of reps to students. So I know a lot of us have our academic rep hoodies now, which is obviously a great thing. But I think improving that visibility will make the relationship a bit more personal between students and the reps, and maybe encourage students to come forward with feedback and give that to the department so it's a bit stronger from the student voice.
Cool. Thank you for the questions from the floor. We'll now move to the debate side of things. I'm sorry if you didn't get to ask your questions, but I'm sure if you come up to the candidates at the end, they'll be more than happy to answer any questions you've got. So I'll now open it up to the candidates to ask any questions to each other.
So Ian, I have a question for you. You mentioned lecture recordings earlier. I fully agree that lecture recordings are important, especially to increase accessibility. But you spoke about the Panopto system and that the main issue was technological barriers. I believe that the 4 previous VP of Education have, or VPs of Education, better English, have all campaigned on the promise of getting lecture recordings done. There's been little change in that, not through necessarily any fault of the VPs themselves, but because it's a complex issue, you've got intellectual property rights, things like that. So why do you think you will be the one to solve the issue? Even though I agree it's important, what will make you different?
First of all, great question. I completely agree with what you're saying. So Panopto has been successful in several universities. I know intellectual property rights is a problem with, especially with FAS. Due to the nature of the lecturer's work. In terms of actually overcoming these barriers, I want to use what other universities have done, try and implement that, and use workshops for lecturers as well, which haven't commonly been implemented.
I need to ask to both Charlotte and Ian. I remember in the last interview on the Bale Rig FM, you guys said it was regarding the space issues, that students don't have space. So one was no space available in the library or lack of space, and another issue was classrooms allocation. So strength of 60 and there is capacity of 40 students sitting there. So how you guys are planning to solve this? And also, I remember you guys mentioned that you don't have power as a VP Education to solve this, since this is not under your area. So how do you justify this?
So I've always said that the VP Education doesn't have the power or resources to just say, yes, this is how many study spaces we're going to build or anything like that. You also don't want me building study spaces because I have no background in construction. But I think it's important to hold the university to account their increasing student numbers when we don't have the space for them, and also use the spaces that are currently being underutilised. There are a few teaching spaces that aren't being used, so perhaps people can study in there. Postgraduates can put those spaces out, could undergraduates maybe, and also study spaces in colleges.
Candidate. So I understand the VP Education doesn't have the highest of powers, but they still do. They attend a lot of important meetings with a lot of important people at the highest of levels, and they are a very big voice for students as well. I know room allocation and room space is a very big problem at the moment. I would want to work with the timetabling team to try and solve these issues as effectively as possible and look to put plans in place for future to make timetabling more efficient in terms of room allocation.
Time.
So specifically for Charlotte and Uday, you're both here for your first year at Lancaster University. Do you feel like this is going to hinder you in any way in taking the role of VP Education?
So, no. First of all, I'm kind of surprised you asked the question because you claim to be for postgraduate students, but I think this kind of exemplifies the problem that is with postgraduate students, is that we're kind of made to feel that because we're only here 1 year, we're not as important. During this year, I have done more than some people do in 3 years. I've been a faculty rep, a Senate representative. I also have loads of experience from my previous universities and from my work experience. So there's so much I could bring to the role.
Thank you.
I think it is basically not going to hinder anything for me, since being very fresh, so I have fresh thoughts, and rather I have more experience of working for 5 years as a project leader. So this is an opportunity for me where I don't have any background of the university and I can do what students need. So I can rather be more approachable for students. Yeah, thank you.
So I have a question for you, Ian. You mentioned in your manifesto about the potential of unconscious bias training for members of staff, and I was just wondering how you would get staff members to engage with that due to the fact that it probably would take quite a bit of time and perhaps money as well.
So yeah, great question. Unconscious bias training is currently in operation in some institutes across the UK. One example is the University of Huddersfield. So I want to try and use their methods to implement that into the system. It won't happen over the space of a night, but to try and put them plans in place to then get ready for future. Anyone else?
We'll take one last question from the candidates, and then we'll move on to a break.
I will continue to the last question you answered for ER and Charlotte. Now, since you said you guys will do something, you will get it solved. You did not mention about the timelines, how much time you will take. So I'm not sure if you have any plans. Another thing is power. Don't you think you guys can influence if you are leaders? Because if you are a leader and you are still thinking of having powers, then why do you need to be vice president? Because I'm thinking as a leader, you need to influence, you need not do it on your own. So that's what my thought is. Can you comment?
So I didn't say that I would solve the issue. I've explicitly said I cannot solve the issue because the VP Education doesn't have the power or resources to solve the issue. I can work with the issue, and some of the things I said were that we can look at existing spaces that are being underutilised, study spaces in colleges, teacher spaces that aren't being used, and as a leader, I kind of like to lead from the back. So we've got all these academic reps, we've got a whole system there that we can foster and empower to hold the university to account.
Yeah, same with Charlotte. As I said, I was going to work with the timetabling team. I know it is a small team and they do a lot of work to ensure that we do have the right spaces. I also want to, as I said in my speech before, I want to try and encourage the use of JCR rooms as well. I think they'd be a great use for academic spaces.
Cool, thank you. That's it from the candidates for VP Education.
Word you say, sometimes I want to slap you on your...
If we could have the candidates for VP Activities to the stage, please. Right, let's get the show on the road. If we could start with Connor, you've got 2 minutes. When you're ready.
Hi, I'm Connor. I study PPE alongside playing 6 sports and attending as many college and societal events as possible. I have 4 main aims. 1, increase Lancaster's standing in the Bucks League. The university has stagnated almost 25 places behind the next worst top 10 university in the Bucks League, and this includes smaller and London-based universities. To improve this situation, I intend to push for better facilities, increased coaching time, better connections, and reassess our priorities with what we already have. Secondly, increase college competition, sporting and academic. Lancaster's college system is one of its greatest assets and yet is sadly underutilised. Introducing more regular leagues in sport and with competitive societies will not take away from things like founders, but build upon these. More college competitions can also hone skills and confidence and can lead to success at university level. 3, engage more students in societal activities. Our societies offer fantastic opportunities, but after Freshers Week, it can become difficult to get involved. I hope most of you have some experience with Lucy's website, and if you want to join something like RockSock, after endlessly clicking through that View More tab again and again, you get down to the bottom just to find out that it clashes with something you already do. You then have to go back through that process repeatedly to find something that you love that also fits with your schedule. I propose a centralized timetable that means you can instantly see what you can be doing with, well, this 3 hours next Monday evening, for instance. 4, deliver the essential kit that we need to succeed. Because Team Kit provides a sense of pride and belonging little else can. I know from personal experience this year how hard it can be just to get access to the basics. While other universities utilize top-level kit sponsorship, we're yet to do this despite our funding issues for all societies. Key to this role is communication, so I want everybody to know that if I'm elected, my door will always be open, and I'll intend to keep people up to date with my website, with what I'm doing day to day. To find out more, visit my website, cshare.com, or just ask me. Then vote Connor for VP Activities. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Toby Wilkinson.
Okay, hey everyone, I'm Toby. I'm running to be VP Activities. My plan next year, if elected, is to focus my attention on improving 3 main aspects of society and sporting life. These are involvement, support, and communication. So in terms of involvement, I plan to aid recruitment for societies and students alike by reworking the society's information on the LUSU website to an activities matchmaker format, and offering societies brochure which provides students with all the relevant information year-round on societies and teams they may be interested in. I feel like this can help students themselves discover new ways to enjoy their university experience, as well as helping the societies to recruit. That be with the matchmaker, it's a way for them to stand out when they usually couldn't, and also it's just giving them the information year-round, not just at the freshers' fairs. I also want to push promotion of club fixtures and events more than ever. So using social media, the media channels within the university, such as LA1 TV, Scan, Bailrig, and the upcoming Alex Square big screen to promote times, locations, they like that one, and also the matchmaker, no, I'm reading the wrong part, this could be used to promote times, locations, and also even live streaming big events to showcase Lancaster's incredibly diverse talent. In terms of support, I want to continue the focus on mental health and the conversation around that, which is a great development over the past few years, by electing welfare officers into as many sports teams and societies as possible.
30 seconds.
And providing them with relevant training. Students, if they want to, can then have a familiar face within their club or society to get the help that they deserve from. And just to wrap up, in terms of communication, I want to promote myself as a completely accountable and approachable as possible. Having gone around a few societies, I've had to even sometimes explain what the VP Activities role is. That means I think that there's not enough being done as for representation. So I feel like I'll have to wrap up there. But yeah, thanks for listening. Hashtag Toby Will.
Next up, we have Brent.
Is this working? Good. All right. So yeah, hi, I'm Brent. I'm obviously running to be next VP Activities. Oh, okay. So one of the first points on my manifesto is societies, because over the last year especially, the Students' Union has cut down pretty immensely the support available to societies, especially financially. So something to explore is definitely how we can recoup that funding, both into giving the financial support and also working better with the societies team to give more general support to societies. Then my first sports pledge is towards colleges, because I know that college eligibility has been a bit of a massive thing over the last year. So it's definitely something that needs to be explored rather than just kind of left on the edge. Then also, especially with sports, we want to look at sports clubs. From my time working on the societies committee for last year, a lot of societies have started to try form separate clubs for so sports clubs are wanting to do a more casual offering that hasn't been made available because the Students' Union doesn't want to splinter off groups into two separate things, but also doesn't want to support these clubs by making it so that so the casual offering, the people who want to attend that are going to have to pay the full Sport Lancaster fee, which isn't something that's really feasible. So yeah, that's something else to look at. And then finally, with sports is roses. I want to make it easier for student groups who aren't necessarily books associated. I want to make it easier for them to get more points, because currently non-book sports are capped at 4 points, which I don't think is very representative of what they want to offer. So yeah, that's something also needs exploring. And my final point is for general student engagement. So I want to make it easier to use the spaces we have available, both Alex Square and Lancaster Square. So doing massive themed events, getting as many societies involved as we can. So if someone does miss the boat on Freshers' Fair, they can come along to all these different events that we've got to offer and see what our societies have got to offer. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell really. So yeah, vote me as your next VP. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. We'll now open it up to the floor for questions. I see a question from Donnie over there in the grey.
Let's run out of batteries. It's fine, I'll just shout. Oh. Right, okay. So as activities, you're going to have to deal with a sensitive topic, which is college eligibility, especially for people who are like postgraduates who have left your college. How would you go about dealing with that situation, especially as it's quite heavily weighted on both sides? Like, how would you approach that situation to get to an outcome?
Okay, I'll go first. So basically, yeah, I completely understand the issue. I'm involved in the bar sports community myself. So the eligibility debate has been going on this year. Not just this year, but it's kind of more come to light this year. It's been more strictly enforced. The important thing to remember with this is, like, it's going to have to be an ongoing conversation, as it has been this year, because there's so many strong opinions on both sides. Ultimately, I'm happy. My view on it, I don't want to be biased either way.
That's time, candidate. Thank you.
Oh, wow. Okay, there you go.
Yes, so when it comes to college eligibility, I know there's no perfect answer, because you'd have to look at taking away from grad college to make it easier for other colleges to be able to retain their postgraduate students. So again, yeah, taking on what Toby says, it is an ongoing conversation. We'd have to be getting in all the JCRs, the postgrad board. It's just going to have to be one massive conversation that just is continuously kept up to date. It can't be left to just sit again, because you're going to encounter all the same problems, but even worse off next year. So yeah, whilst there's no definitive solution, it's just about making sure that we keep an engaged conversation going on.
That's time, candidate. Thank you.
Yeah, I offer a very neutral sort of viewpoint on this, not being part of the bar sports community, but sort of having come into this later and heard lots of the opinions. And I think, yeah, get people around the table and start to discuss it, but it's very important because obviously I want to build all college sport, so it's obviously something that needs addressing quite early on and very early in the year, get everyone in and try to come up with a solution that keeps as many people as happy as possible, but actually come up with a sort of proper solution so it can be sort of dealt with.
Cool, thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Okay, let's go with Craig over here.
So I want to know, what activities have the three of you been involved in while you've been here, and how will they help you in the role? And also, if one of you could wait for a pause that never comes, that would be great. Thank you.
So since I've started at uni, I've been involved heavily with gaming and esports. I've been the esports coordinator when I first started, and then have been the president now for 2 years running. So I've been very heavily involved in that side. I'm also sitting on the societies committee within the union, and also I've started working with student engagement to kind of engage more students really. But yeah, that's where my experience comes from, and that's where my passion for running for VPs come from.
So as I mentioned in my speech, I'm in 6 sporting societies here. I compete in rugby, hockey, cricket, lacrosse, triathlon and cycling. So I have a very wide range of sporting activities here. And before that at my college, I was heavily involved in the music societies and then Model United Nations philosophy society. So I have a massive range of societies that I can bring to the table that I think actually, unfortunately, my other candidates might be a bit more narrow in their interests.
Cheers, Connor. I've been involved, like I said, really heavily within Cartmel in the bar sports scene for the past 3 years. There's your bingo point. And also, I've played university level for bar sports as well. I helped with my flat set up the wine society a couple of years ago, which is doing really well. I've been working on college bars for 2 years now, so I've got a good idea of how they work for event space. And yeah, just things here and there.
Cool, thank you. Let's take a question from Twitter now. How do you plan to work with student media throughout your tenure? Let's start with Connor.
I think Scan is really important to try to keep working with them and get stuff out. Yeah, they're sat at the back. I mean, that's available for everybody across campus, whether you're participating in social media or anything else. LA1TV is a great resource, and I want to actually work with them with my idea about a virtual Freshers Fair to try to get more multimedia content with the societies and potentially use them to help promote all societies across campus a bit more and then help promote their material. So then it's sort of a feedback loop to keep helping them.
Yeah, so as I said, I really want to use the student medias to help promote events and fixtures coming up of the societies themselves. Also continue what's going on in the Scan moment with the club focus in each issue on a specific society or sports team. I think that's a really great way to showcase what societies are doing. And yeah, just kind of more of the same, and but with more emphasis on promotion of upcoming events and things like that, and reviews of them.
Yes, especially with what LA1TV and Scan do at the minute, which is with the society spotlights. That's something to carry on with on a bigger scale, getting more diverse clubs in to talk about what they've got to offer, especially pushing on people have missed out on Freshers Fair and stuff like that. But then again, with how we're going to have the big screen up soon in Alex Square, we want to be getting both these things that are already done, pushed out on a bigger scale, but also making it easier for people to see what's going on by student media engaging more directly with societies and then extending that on to
That's time,
the new
candidate.
platforms.
Thank you.
Cool. Back to the floor. Any questions? Down here at the front.
So I just wanted to ask, what sort of support will you offer to sports teams, societies, other than aiming to increase funding? So could you just go into a bit more depth?
What kind of support?
Yeah.
Yeah, so sure, just so any help that they need with kind of booking spaces or booking transport, any kit issues, that's in terms of the sports teams. General societies, again, booking space is a big issue for a lot of teams. And yeah, I think, I kind of repeating myself here, but promoting what they're doing, I think that's the best way to get people involved, is to just showcase what's going on. people are more likely to get involved if they're watching something. So, you know, promoting what's going on, I suppose, the main one.
So to answer that, especially when we're looking at how the union is currently constructed this year, we've got the societies team and the sports staff team. So I want to make sure that both these teams have got the resources available for when clubs are coming in to discuss what they need, so that they aren't having to repeat call what they need is there when they need it. And then on top of that, again, giving them the support they need. So when we're doing events in the square, making sure that the execs taking part know about upcoming events, so that we can rely on the information onto everyone else, so that there's
That's
always
time,
this...
candidate. Thank you.
Yeah, building on that, I think they're all excellent ideas, and I think we should work on them. I also have some sort of non-cost initiatives in terms of like space usage, so not just trying to build better facilities, but also give people more access to them, which they're already there, they're already paid for, so that obviously doesn't cost anything. And then just keep talking to people and just give them any support that they need in any way that I can. Lots of it isn't monetary, it's just being there to provide them with an avenue to help get help.
Cool, thank you. We'll now take a question from the current VP Activities, Ben.
So the university is currently undergoing a review of sport with the aim of outlining what is the vision for sport at Lancaster. So I appreciate it's quite a lot to answer in 30 seconds, but what would your priorities be for the vision of sport at Lancaster?
So with this one, trying to make it into 30 seconds, it's about making sure that, so we have our Bucks League. It's important that we focus on making sure they have the resources available to be the best that they can. But then we also have a lot of sports who aren't Bucks associated and definitely feel a bit like they've been left out on the curb. So it's important that they're included in the sports review, so they are also being equally considered by the university for making sure that they also have what they need, because we are all one university when it comes to that kind of thing.
So I have a lot of ideas about this. This is kind of my primary focus. But I think actually the most important thing is the college sport and the college competition, because by increasing that then feeds through. The more people who can get involved, the more that can build through the university. It gets more people involved in activity, which is always a good thing. There's big benefits for mental health and all sorts of stuff with just getting people active. So I think certainly build through the college sport, but then that filters through, yeah.
To echo that, college sport would be my first focus, with a view, obviously not losing focus on what we're wanting to achieve with the elite Bucks teams, making sure that they've got everything they need within reason, obviously, would be on a budget. But yeah, so making sure that college sports are getting what they need, and recreational leagues, such as things like a similar version of what Just Play was, making sure that everyone's enjoying themselves. That's my main thing. They don't have to be the best team in the country. As long as they feel like they are, that's all that matters to me.
Cool, thank you. We'll take 2 more questions from the room. I see Siri and then Paolo. Sorry.
Hey. So it's quite interesting to know the different backgrounds that you're all from, but like going through your manifesto, sometimes you've made quite similar pledges. What's unique to your manifesto that makes you stand out from your candidates?
Actually, I think lots of it isn't on my manifesto for me. I've completed extensive research already on lots of different universities' programs and how they do things. I talk about us being a top 10 university but not being comparable to those, and I actually have all the stats to back that up. So actually, I don't just have ideas, I actually know how to implement them and seen how other people implement them. So I think that's potentially what sets me apart.
I'd say what sets me apart from these guys is the fact that I've been here for 3 years. Neither of these guys have. I've experienced a lot more, I think, in terms of time-wise, and within that, I've packed a lot into it. So I guess experience and the network of great kind of contacts I've built up over those 3 years, whether it's like going around each college every week with bar sports or working on the bars, I've met so many people over this time, and I feel like that network of people is what sets me apart.
So what sets me apart from the other 2 is that I have very extensive knowledge of how these kind of things are worked behind the scenes. I'm very heavily involved with how the Students' Union views and supports societies currently, and I know that similarly, sports works in a similar way. So having that experience, I feel like if I got elected, I'd be able to jump in on the first day and have a head start on seeing where we need to be working in, what the key areas to go into straight away.
Cool, thank you. Paolo, you had a question, and then we'll move over to the debate.
A big obstacle that athletes in Lancaster face week in, week out is the conflict of interest between the sports team they belong to and the department, because very often, and I've experienced this myself, fixtures are organised to be at the same time as lectures, tutorials, seminars that departments might put on. As the voice of the students, and particularly as the voice of all of those athletes, how would you work with the departments and agents outside of the union to make sure that the two are balanced the correct way?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's something that I've seen quite a lot personally as well, like people being penalised for missing and contributing to the uni in non-academic areas. I don't think it should be the case at all. I don't think there should be the dilemma there in the first place. I think all the FTOs really need to work on this, liaising with the academic departments and lobbying them to make sure they're upholding, not keeping Wednesday afternoons free. Even keeping Wednesdays free, if possible, that's the dream. Just have a whole day. For, if you've got like away fixtures, you need to be able to have the time. But yeah, just making sure the academic departments are keeping the Wednesdays free, Wednesday afternoons.
Yeah, so with this, it's important to remember that we don't want to impact on the academic studies of students. So it is just about talking to the university and ensuring that they are aware that Wednesday afternoons do need to be kept free, because whilst they accept there is currently Wednesday afternoons are used for training, they don't necessarily enforce this. And I know there are a lot of clashes that can't necessarily be fixed because of group size and stuff like that. This is important that it's just a constant ongoing conversation so that the university is always aware of what the demand is of the free time.
I think it's important that we keep Wednesday afternoons free and potentially work into earlier in the day, making sure that we've got as much time as free as possible to get to those fixtures so that you don't have to sacrifice your academics. Also working to make sure that you can switch seminars or lectures, if possible, much more flexibly, putting in systems for that. And also work with, I know Ian Meeks earlier talked about in his education, getting postgraduates the afternoon off, because Wednesday afternoons aren't free for postgraduates, and I think beyond just undergraduates struggling with clashes, they need time off as well.
Thank you for the questions from the floor. We'll now move over to the debates between the candidates. So I'll open it up to the three candidates to question one another now.
Yeah, I've just got the manifesto just to make sure I put it out there right. But I just wanted to question you, Brent. In your manifesto, you said that our sports offering is among the best. And I just wanted to wonder if that opinion's changed, having heard the speak, or how you sort of came to that conclusion. And if you think that's it, then we're done with what we need in sports.
So there's a difference obviously between the sports performance and the sports offering. So sports offering, we have an incredibly diverse offering to what we can give our students, and I still believe that. And it doesn't necessarily mean that there's nothing to work on. There's always something to work on to increase that diversity. And it's all about working with the university to ensure that these groups have got the power and the ability to grow, so that we can also become one of the best sports performing universities as well.
Anyone else?
Any other questions to each other?
I'll make some. Come on, you've got to think of some sort of question. I just want to ask, as a third year, having spent the majority of your time already gone here at the university, sort of what's invested in this position for you? Like, what's your motivation to try to keep increasing the standard and make things better?
Well, exactly that. I've spent 3 years here. I've fallen in love with this university, and I don't want it to just leave it. We're in a state that I feel like there could be more to be done. Like, I don't think there's any more really to say. Like, I've spent 3 years here. I've spent time in societies and sports teams, and I've seen things that need to be done better, and I want to stick around, and I want to make sure that I can be the one to do that for this university. So.
Cool, thank you. Any other questions to each other?
Yeah, so as a first year, what makes you think you've got enough experience to know this university well enough to be in charge of representing all its societies?
Well, I think in terms of time spent doing stuff, I think I could easily compete with somebody who's been here for 3 years. I mean, I have a 25-hour-a-week or so sports schedule, so I have a lot of experience in that. I've also had experience running societies at my previous college, so I don't think that being a first year is a particular setback there. I actually have that experience and the drive to take it forward.
So this goes more towards you, Connor. When it comes to your manifesto, I know you've got quite a lot of ideas, a lot of different points to make. How feasible do you think that is that you're going to be able to actually accomplish all these things over the next year and not leaving like the students with false expectations and with an actual reality?
I think actually here I'm quite realistic. There is a lot that I think can be done in a year. And there is a lot that also needs to be put in motion for future things, like buildings, facilities and stuff. That is a thing that really needs to be pushed for as soon as possible. I appreciate that if you want to build something, that does actually take time. So I'm very open, and I mean on my website and stuff, I talk about, it's not just about a short-term plan, although there is a lot that I think that I can do. It's also about making sure that the university puts in a long-term plan that actually benefits everybody for all extracurricular activities here.
Any other questions to each other? Nope. Thank you very much to the candidates for VP Activities. If I could invite the candidates for President up to the stage now, please. Thank you very much. Right, let's get started with this. One last reminder to keep the whooping and yelling to a minimum, to keep the event entirely accessible. So we'll now kick things off with the candidates for President, and we will begin with Rhiannon.
Do you count us in, or?
Whenever you go, we go.
Okay. Hi, I'm Rhiannon. I'm a third-year biomed student, president of the First Aid Society, and former president of both the County College and Students' Union. Whilst finishing my degree, I've had time to reflect on my time in office. I'm very proud of everything we achieved, but leaving the bubble and going back to student life drove home to me the issues that students currently face, some old, some new, and the value of an experienced president in remedying them. Some of the biggest achievements from my previous term were the lobbying my team and I did on the Higher Education and Research Bill, which got us cited and thanked by members of the House of Lords, negotiating the freezing of certain campus rents below £100 per week, and achieving the highest on-campus voter turnout since 1997 for the snap general election. Actually listening to students is vital to the SU, and so I have based the 5 themes of my campaign around the results of a few recent SU university surveys. For example, 53% of students' main motivations for going to university is their career. My first theme is academic, extracurricular and employability, which includes pledges to diversify the volunteering opportunities available and to make gym memberships more flexible, plus adapting the union minibus system. 35% of LU students have struggled with mental health. Under my second theme, welfare and community, our pledges to campaign for further mental health funding and improved welfare signposting, as well as community pledges such as improving the SU relationship with the council. 41% of students have saving students' money should be one of the union's top priorities. Under the cost of living theme, I pledge to provide budgeting tips and advice to expand the offers such as Purple Card and build on incoming accommodation bundling schemes going to live next year. Going to live next year. Only 22% of students feel they're represented by the SU. Under the governance and transparency, I pledge to re-evaluate the 2015-16 SU Democratic Review and to better publicise the union and students' achievements, as well as providing more support and resources for JCI executives and the PG board. Finally, around 58% of postgraduate students say they have never used the Students' Union. Final theme is postgraduates recognise the union is failing the huge group of its members and pledges to change this through promoting a greater research culture, empowering PG students to have more of a say in their course design and improving relations with the UCU. Please think of me as your number one choice for president. Thanks.
Thank you, Rhiannon. Next up, we have Josh Wolfe.
Hopefully that'll do. There you go, perfect. All good? Okay, hi everyone. I'm Josh Wolfe. I'm your current union president and I'm running for re-election. I just want to start by saying thank you very much. It's been absolutely amazing to listen to all the debates, all the questions and answers today. It's been really, really good. So there's 4 main things I've been doing this year and 3 things that I hope to do next year if re-elected. So really, really quickly. I've had the officers out as part of the pop-up union. We've all been working together to get out, talk about the campaigns and issues that really matter to our students. I've managed to secure £200,000 from the university to fix accessibility issues around our campus for students who physically can't get to their lectures. Well, hopefully you've seen some of the stuff. Memecaster, if you're out there. I loved your meme about me, the Sugar House defending that, and the soundproofing issues around the local developments. And finally is the spine, getting 6 months of works knocked off the spine, so actually it's going to be done by the time we're all back in October. So really, really quick, because I'm sure my time's running out. I want to work on better scrutiny, getting the officers more accountable. I want to work on cost of living, making sure there's more money in your pocket. And finally, the one that I am now forgetting is mental health, building on some of the amazing work that's already been done by the Grow Our Minds campaign this year, and really pushing it on the university to make sure as an institution they're supporting the needs that we have as students to support our mental health. So yet again, thank you very much, guys. It's been an absolutely amazing evening. Really proud to be here and join the Wolfpack.
Thank you, Josh. Next up, we have Siri.
Hi everybody, I'm Siri Hampaport and I'm running to be your next Students' Union President. I'm a third year and I've already got experience interacting with the union as I'm station manager of LA1 TV. Shout out to the crew who's filming tonight. So the main reason I want to run is to take our student union in a fresh, new direction to see a change in culture for a fairer, more representative, approachable and transparent union. So it's not fair that the cost of living is increasing while the quality of living is decreasing. If elected as president, I will be there at every meeting to make sure that your vote and your voice is heard. As a woman of colour, I think I'm really passionate about the fact that there hasn't been a woman of colour president before, and in the past 10 years there hasn't been a president of colour, and then these shocking statistics show that there really needs to be a change. So I've experienced firsthand and heard stories during my time that the union is far from perfect, and this has been the motivation behind the points on my manifesto. But during my campaigning, it's been great hearing what you have to say about what you want changed in the union and how I can provide that for you. So from listening to Pendle Welfare, I want to improve the relationship between the union and the JCRs to improve that support and give guidance for roles. And from listening to members of the Islamic Society, I want to push the university into putting more funding into religious spaces on campus. And as a result, this will improve our mental health services, which is something I did highlight in my manifesto. So finally, from talking to you, the members of the student body, I want to improve the union's presence on campus, because how can a union that's so detached from its student body be fully representative? So as a president, I will listen and use these voices to speak truth to power, to really make a change. I wouldn't be standing here tonight if I didn't think this change was possible by voting for me, Siri Hampaport, as your next student union president.
Thank you very much, and we'll now open it up to the floor for questions. I see a lot of hands. We will begin with Molly over there and then Michelle down here.
Hi, so as you probably should know, the union's going under a strategic review at the moment. So if you had a pot of money that had no strings attached, what would be the first change that you would make to the current union through this sort of development strategy review?
Yep, if Josh begins and then we move around.
So actually I was kind of hoping there'd be a question like this. I think for me personally, one of the most important things that we do as a union is our advice team, because it's there for when students really have no other option. I can see Will's quite happy about that. He's a member of our advice team. Basically, it's... Sorry, I know I shouldn't mention staff. Very sorry. Yeah, basically, the most important thing that we do. Second to that, it's got to be the societies and the groups that our students can get really involved in.
So one thing I've highlighted on my manifesto is what we can provide in terms of mental health facilities, and I don't want to presume about other problems that students might face in the future, but I know that this is currently a problem that students face. So if we can put that money into doing things that we can control to help the mental health facilities that we've currently got, that would be my priority.
I'd say that my priority would be around promoting awareness of the services that union do already provide. For example, only 6% of students actually know that we do have an advice service. So I wouldn't see the point in investing further money in a certain area if people don't even realise that we have it. I'd say that promoting and marketing all the services that the union does have so that students do know all the different things that we do have at their disposal. Following that, though, it would definitely be on looking at areas such as the JCRs and the PG board as well, because
that's time,
they're having...
candidate. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Question down here from Michelle.
Sorry, this is a bit of a long question. It's got a bit of like background to it. So the income and the capitation across the JCR budget's equal in that each college JCR starts with the same income. However, JCRs who sell out on freshers packs or other events and come out with a profit have more money to spend on events and welfare campaigns compared to other events. Do you think it's acceptable that students that are a part of more entrepreneurial colleges possibly benefit more than students from less profitable colleges? And if not, what would you do to change that?
If we start with Siri and then work our way around.
Sorry, I missed some of the question just because of all the jeering. What was the middle part of that?
So it's basically saying that colleges who sell out on freshers packs and stuff like that actually have like more money to put into events than colleges who don't. So if you're from a college like Fylde, for example, last year sold out massively on freshers packs compared to Pendle, you might have better events. And like, is this acceptable? And if not, what would you do to change it?
I think this is a quite subjective thing because obviously it's great and we do want to encourage JCRs to try and sell out their freshers packs, but obviously that's not always possible. But then this should be on us and our responsibility to give you that support when you need it. And if that's through funding, then that's through funding. And if that's through just talking to you guys and giving you advice and training sessions, then it's through that. So it's basically what you want to see from us. We will provide that for you, and if it's through funding, I think that's really important that we do that. Students shouldn't miss out just because they are part of a certain college. So I think I would be quite...
Candidate. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, so to answer your question, I think there's also an issue with actually how much a budget a JCR is given, so it's not based on the size of your college in the first place, which means that you have to distort how much you sell freshers packs at. I think we should always encourage JCRs to make this as best value for money for your students, rather than trying to rip off your freshers as well. So I think it's a mixture of changing the budgeting how it is anyway for how you're allocated money, but also reminding you that you're here only to make this the best experience as cheap as possible, and we'll help promote other ways of selling your packs if you haven't done it in that time.
So, I mean, it's already been said, it's not necessarily just about the money and how the current system is at the moment. I think it does need looking at, but I don't think that's necessarily just the choice of the union president. I think there's a lot of work to be done with UD and actually talking to all of the presidents of the JCRs on how it can work best for them, and working to help all the colleges, so the ones who are struggling specifically, to really sell the things that they're trying to sell, but still at value for money for their students.
Cool. Next question. Okay, a lot of hands. If we go to the back over there by the Vote Fest banner. Don't forget, you can tweet us questions at #VoteFest18.
Hi, so nationally the NUS has come out in support of the UCU strike, but at branch level the student union has tried to occupy a neutral ground. I was just wondering what each of your views are on the UCU strike, and can you give reasons for why you take that view?
I think when it comes to the UCU strikes, it's actually a big kettle of fish that we're opening, and it's a huge debate. But to summate, I do support the staff because at the end of the day, academics are grossly underpaid for the work that they do. If you think that they're some of the brightest people in the UK, if they went to the private providers, they could be charged, they could get a lot more money, but they stay because of their pensions. If we cut that, we could get rid of some of the best academics, and then we won't be taught by the best, and we won't be able to achieve the highest grades. So I'd say I support the staff simply because without them, this won't be a great university. Without them, we are not students.
Thank you.
needs to reset the timer. Sorry, just letting everyone get their drinks. Okay, so I think the issue is bigger than just the strikes. I think the issue goes to the fact that if we don't have proper pensions and we don't have a pension scheme that works for our staff, then staff aren't going to want to work here, and it's a far more long-term issue than just 14 days. So 100%, yes, I support the staff that we have here at this university, but at the same time, we as a union had a democratic vote, and whilst my vote was counted, the overall vote was to take a stance to help support students to take their own opinions, and so I definitely am behind that.
So yeah, my stance is that I am in support of the strikes. I think this is a failing on the university management. They've not been able to stand up for their staff properly. It's not all universities that have adhered to this change. So I think, if our university is going in this direction, what is that to say about, the way that our university is going? And with everything, with the increasing marketisation of the university, I think this is something that we should hold the university to account for, and we should put our view on it and our stance on it.
Thank you. Any more questions from the floor? Yes. Oh, we have a very excited individual at the back waving their arms, so let's go over there.
Right. Two of the candidates have already had the opportunity to deliver the policies that they are currently promoting. Why was this not done while you're still in office or when you were in office?
If we start with Siri this time and then work our way around.
NA, not applicable.
Oh, not bad. Josh and Rhiannon.
Rhiannon, then Josh. Okay.
So I think it's important to know that the first time that we run on certain pledges, and it's now that we're reflecting on for me, I'm reflecting on my time in office and now seeing how we've moved on and other priorities are for students now. So now I have different changes that I want to implement, and it's also using the experience that I've previously had, knowing that I can actually start implementing them from day one, rather than taking 5 to 6 months, because it does take time to actually understand the true role of president and be able to utilize that role and be efficient and help your vice presidents as well achieve theirs.
Good timing. To the seconds. Basically, same as what Rhiannon's just said. I've got different priorities for this year compared to last year, the current year, however you want to call it. So actually, it's about working on different things and continuing to create those benefits for students rather than repeating things or trying to get things done over a 2-year period rather than a 1 year.
Okay. Next question, this time right at the back, Nathan. There, yep.
Hi. Hi again. All your manifestos are full of great ideas, but they're usually prefaced with the phrase, "I would lobby for," and none of you have described what you think effective lobbying looks like and why you'd be the best candidate to do that. So if you could describe that to me, that'd be great.
Siri this time.
So what I think effective lobbying looks like is to actually say what the students are thinking. So I think rather than thinking about too much into the relationship with university management or all the politics behind it, we need to just be honest and say what the student body is thinking and represent them. So it's about putting our foot down and actually saying this is what the students want and standing up for the students' rights as well.
Okay, so I'd say that lobbying is a multifaceted approach. It's about utilising people on the ground, using grassroots campaigns to actually prove that this means something to students, and then it's being able to quantify it. So then when you have to go to the university management, they do speak in statistics and they speak in evidence, and you have to back that up, but it's by doing events and then counting the number of people that have attended, and then using that to back up the statistics at a university level, but also empowering students so that they're the ones that are driving that campaign, because it's something that they need changing, and we then take it to the table when they can't.
Thank you. Completely honestly, it depends what the issue is. It depends what the way that the university first respond to the different issue. So if it's as simple as something going to the university saying, look, this is an issue that matters to us, and they say, actually, you know what, that'd be quite easy to implement, let's get it done, perfect. But if it's something that we have to really fight on, then getting students involved, getting them active, and actually showing the university, look, our students care about this, and you have to change it. So honestly, I can't answer it in 30 seconds. Check out the bail rig debate, because we did talk about different ways of lobbying the university.
That's time, candidate. Thank you.
Cool. Any more questions from the room? Okay. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Is there anyone that hasn't asked a question tonight? Okay, over here.
How would you engage the student body in general, given the union's catastrophic failure in engaging with students and implementing any form of direct democracy? Specifically related to, in recent times, the strike, which didn't go to a referendum despite the fact it could have done because of union failure.
Let's begin with Rhiannon.
Okay, so could you just repeat the question, sorry, because it is really loud with the sports teams, but I know what they're like.
Yeah, basically about direct democracy, and how would you engage with the student body rather than through meaningless panels of a few select students that can be actually bothered to turn up. Engaging the mass movement of the student body.
Okay, so I think it's a mixture of, like, I think too much of us as a union, we expect students to come to us. Whilst I've been going around with sports clubs and societies, I've been saying, realistically, we need to do more where we actually go to the sports clubs and societies, but also utilising JCRs as well, going to them. We need to be approaching them and asking them for feedback rather than asking them to come to us, because that's where it continuously is. It's a one-way pathway, and just going on the square and things like that isn't enough. We need to directly go to them, even if it's like, come and talk to us and say how rubbish we are. We want to hear it so we can actually work on it and change as a union.
So for me, it's actually some of the stuff that I have been doing, though I do want to do it more, getting out, actually speaking to students, whether it's going to visit clubs and societies, whether it's talking to the JCRs, that kind of thing. But actually it's listening to the things that they say, and they said what they wanted about certain things, and I have voted for referendums in the past, and I do stand by that. I always think that we should be listening to our student body. It's something that's really, really important, but I do have to respect the democracy when I'm outvoted.
Something that I think that no one has said yet is the fact that some students aren't part of clubs or societies or part of the JCR. These are the students who don't even know what the union does or who we are, and these are the people that we need to talk to. So it's not about just going to people who already know what the union is. It's about going to lectures or standing out in the square and just talking to people, like everyday people who are just running in between lectures, and just grabbing them and just talking to them about the union and how we can help them.
Thank you. I will now take a question from one of the current FTOs, Laura.
Okay, so given that you've all mentioned mental health support as something that you want to be one of your priorities next year, and that mental health is something that has been campaigned on at the university and nationally for years, what makes you think that you'll be able to make a change that other people can't?
If we start with Josh this time.
Completely honestly, I don't think it's about trying to be better than what someone else has already done. It's about building on the work that has already been done. There's so much that's being done, even today, for the candidates getting out and having the tea party that you put on was really helpful for us. But it's little things like that, building them up, continuing to keep this as a big issue in the minds of the students, in the minds of the union, and in the minds of the university, really, really pushing the university at every chance there is, that they need to be matching what we're doing as a union.
Yeah, so it's more rather than like what they haven't done. It's more about what I can do. I'm not, the past two presidents. I'm a new person, and I come with my own experiences, and I would be bringing those experiences to the table. I'm a different person. I can be forceful if needs be, and it's about putting that pressure on to get those funds that we need. And it's about time that we use this campaigning as a positive way forward to actually put in tangible processes.
Yeah. I think when it comes to mental health, it's not just about lobbying the university for more funding, because realistically, you can always put more and more funding into mental health, and it'll never really quite be enough, especially if we don't focus on things like prevention as well. I think we need to look at more areas within mental health. It's not just when people are at critical, it needs to be preventing people getting to that point, so doing more workshops on like work-life balance, dealing with exam stress, and getting into good self-care patterns and like sleeping patterns as well. So it's doing things at various levels, so from lobbying the university to workshops.
Thank you, candidate.
Cool. We'll now take a question from Twitter. The university and city are going through major changes over the next few years. How will you improve the relationship between town and gown? I think they meant campus. So, town and campus. We'll start with Siri.
Sorry, can you repeat the question, please?
The university and city are going through major changes over the next few years. How will you improve the relationship between town and campus?
Okay, so I think it's important to keep our relationship between the union and the councillors. I know that we have a couple of student councillors at the moment, and I think that's really great because it shows that as students we are engaging with the city that we live in. So it's more about encouraging that relationship and having those meetings on a regular basis to talk about the issues that are going on in town and how we as a union could help, or vice versa.
So considering one of our university ward councillors is at the back, Nathan Burns, I'd like to do more meetings where we actually meet with them each month. We used to do that, and we used to work on projects as well to try and talk more about how students can also get engaged with the university ward councillors. I think we should also try and expand on that as well and talk to more like the chief exec, like Susan Parsonage. We need to also talk to various people on county council level as well, especially when you have projects like Canal Corridor North, where it's a big impact on Lancaster City. We need to have our say.
That's time, candidate. Thank you.
So I think it's about actually being open to people who like yourself, sorry, no, this wasn't from Nathan, I thought it was, but like Nathan and the other councillors, when they're coming to us with issues, making sure we're willing to work with them. But it is an area where you need to be careful because there is the VP Welfare and Community. They take the lead on the community engagement role, so working with them, making sure you're not stepping on any toes, that kind of thing, but working together to basically cooperate with the city.
Thank you. We'll now take a question from Craig down here at the front in the blue hoodie.
Hi. So a lot of what being president is about is listening to other people. So what's the best part of each other's manifestos?
We'll start with Rhiannon this time.
One of my favourite parts of series, do you want it for both candidates or just all candidates, or is it? Sorry, can I have clarification on the question? Can I have clarification on the question first? Do you want one from each of the?
It would be nice to have one from each of your competitors, but if you can only think of one, then.
Yeah? No, I like that Siri's brought a focus to liberation because at the end of the day, that is the platform that she can provide. It's a platform that I'm also passionate about as well, being parts of various liberation groups and also wanting to hear and help steer those liberation groups and steer our part-time officers. I love her manifesto pledge on that. I also like Josh's ideas within the bus fares and that literally having to think of what role we have to play when it comes to negotiating bus passes and trying to keep them at a reasonable level rather than keeping them increasing as well.
So for me, it's fairly simple. I've got things that line up with both of the manifestos. I'm not going to talk about mental health because that's a really easy answer. It's actually about this cost of living that Rhiannon's mentioned, and actually I've been working on a lot of stuff to do with how you get that bundling system to work and kind of completing that and making sure that it is ready to roll out. In terms of Siri, it's that transparency that we're always talking about. I think it's so important. We're making sure the officers and the whole union are as transparent as possible for our students.
Yeah, so just to echo Josh, I really like Rhiannon's gym membership bundling idea. Like, I definitely would be picking and mixing my gym membership if I had that opportunity. And Josh, what you're doing with the pop-up in the square, I think that's such a great start to what we can achieve in terms of visibility with the union. So, yeah.
Cool, thank you. We're going to take one last question that has been sent in. I'll now read it out. It's quite a long one, so bear with me. 2 of your biggest responsibilities are transparency and holding the university accountable. A great platform to do so was University Court, now abolished in favour of a public general meeting. How do you intend to increase students' visibility in this new format, and how will you ensure the union's concerns are acted upon by the university? We'll start with Josh this time.
Happy? Cool. So basically, University Court is gone. Unfortunately, it is no more. But the annual public meeting that will replace it, I've already been in talks with the university discussing how we can make sure that our students are still getting an invite specifically. So we've got a certain number of students who really, really feel like they should be going, and then encouraging others. It's the job of the FTOs to encourage as many students as possible to engage in these kind of things, and just literally getting out and talking to students, giving them an idea of how good this opportunity is to hold the university account. And get them to come along.
Yeah, I agree. All students are welcome to the AGM, APM. But yeah, I think it's about encouraging students to actually attend this meeting because it's so crucial that they are there to hold the university management team to account. So if it's through campaigning, marketing, we should really push that that APM is advertised so students know they're welcome to go and they should go to hold the university to account.
Thank you. I feel like it shouldn't just be a once a year type situation. There's all staff meetings that happen. Why can't we have extended invitations or at least links sent to us so that we're having updates each term about the university rather than just once a year? And also, why can't they do similar structures to us? Why can't they have LA1 down filming where it's live and you can actually ask questions on the spot? Someone should be able to access it at home. They don't need to physically be in the room. We're in the 21st century. So why can't the university keep up with that and get into a digital world?
Cool. Thank you very much. That's it for questions from the floor. We'll now move on to the debate between candidates. So I'll now open it up to the candidates to question one another.
Anyone want to go first? Is that a yes from you? Go on. Grill us.
Okay, so I've mentioned this before, but like both of you seem very concerned about your your relationship with the university. So Rhiannon, you didn't take a stance on the NSS boycott, and Josh, it doesn't seem like there's been a very strong stance on the strikes. And it seems kind of like I'm the only one on this panel that's publicly held the VC to account through our interview with him, like on LA1 TV. And it just makes me question, like, are you scared of taking a stance that could possibly impact your relationship with the university?
I think with your example with the NSS, the actual issue with that one was actually by NSS boycotting, you're also actually going to impact students. And if we'd NSS boycotted, that could lose us a place in the top 10 university, which is a reason why a lot of students do come here. And also, I think it's about the fact that only less than 20% of any students' union across the whole of the UK that are part of the NUS even bothered boycotting because they realised it was not the best thing to do. We allow students to make that decision because at the end of the day, they were the ones filling out the survey.
Thank you.
So basically, this is around the strikes. I've already said I voted one way. Unfortunately, democracy works that I got outvoted. But I do think it is really important to hold the university to account. It's not necessarily about really pushing publicly against the VC himself, but getting out in the square does have an effect. And when we push a really big campaign publicly out in the university, the university management do react and they do listen to us better, and we've managed to get some really good steps by doing that.
Thank you very much. Continue as you were, interrogating one another.
One of your areas within your manifesto is change, and it's about better quality of services for like LUSU living. I just wanted to ask, like, what do you feel is what work is inefficient that LU Homes are doing, because they do vet the landlords and they do checklists, and all of this is already ongoing. So I just thought it was strange to be under the category of change when it already happens, and I just wanted to ask, like, how would you want to change that, and what are the failings and insufficientness of LU Homes as a program?
So I think the main failing is not being thorough enough with these landlord vetting and the checklist. So yes, they already exist and it's already happening, but then we still have these problems. And like I've heard from loads of my friends that they're having problems with rats in their ceilings and not having the facilities in a house that they should do. So it's about being more thorough and actually sitting down with them and making sure that they're doing that and holding them to account and making sure that a change actually happens, because our students...
That's time, candidate. Thank you very much.
I'm hoping I'm going to get enough time for 2 questions in this. I'm getting a little bit of a nod. So I'm going to start with Rhiannon. My question for you is, you've got a very, I'm not going to call it heavy, a very long manifesto. How are you going to make sure you manage to get all of those things done? Because when I came into office, I had people reaching out to me asking, to this academic peer mentoring system, how do we do it? How do we implement it? And the bundling system that you've spoken about in your manifesto still isn't complete, and I'm working to try and make sure that that gets finished, ready in time to implement either in the upcoming October or the year after, because it's not been finished yet. So how will you make sure that this list of things will get done in a year?
So a lot of the things that you've listed are actually things that I was waiting on the university for, and that's because it's building programs and things like that with interfaces for actually the services. I think the thing is, realistically, I've been a volunteer before when it comes to JCRs. If I was elected, I know that I'd just start on my manifesto in the sense of lining up how will I achieve this before I've even started in my post, because at the end of the day, student politics has mostly been my experience at university. I was president of county my first year, and volunteering for students is what I've been really passionate about, so I just start doing it from the day I was
That's time, candidate.
announced.
Thank you.
Any more questions from any of you?
I have another one, but I want to give... Okay, this one is for Siri, and give me a second to remember it, because I was just focusing on Rhiannon's. Sorry, my mind has gone completely blank. We'll go for the backup question. You've spoken a lot about how you can represent both women and BME students because of your, well, the fact you are a woman and you are a BME student. Is there an example that you can give where you've used your role either in LA1 or just campaigning with the current liberation groups to represent those students and the issues that they face?
Can I give an example that's not part of either of those things? Okay, because this is quite an important thing. So I was in a meeting about coverage that LA1 TV are doing, and they were like, okay, we've covered gay people, we've covered women, and then I was the only one in that room who was a BME person. So I then could represent and say, actually, we've missed something glaringly obvious. We need to improve BME contribution to this. I don't know if I can say what it is, though, because it's potentially under commercial confidence.
And that's time.
Perfect timing.
Any more questions for Rhiannon? I see you've got one.
Yeah, one more question.
Yeah. So Josh, this is specifically for you. So basically your manifesto kind of talks about continuing what you're doing now. What's stopping you from just finishing it in your year of president? Why do you need to go for another year?
So I think it's a little bit confusing. In the actual objectives that I've got this year, I am going to be finishing. And there's certain ways that I want to step up and build on them in a future year, but they will all be done. And then it's continuing on the work of just when issues arise, when those challenges come up, championing students, championing the issues, and actually bringing them to the university. So the the objectives will be done. It's building on them and making them even better and continuing just fighting the fight as such.
So again, mine's towards Siri, and it's because from the manifesto it was very hard to find some questions, but yours was very thorough, so I've been able to pick out some areas. But for example, you say, with reference to the Sugar House, as SU Club, you should be a model of good night out, no sexual harassment, violence or abuse in any form. I just wanted to wonder, do you know what the approach is? Because there is a zero tolerance approach to it. There's actually a placard on the side of Sugar House that says that the number 10 rule is that fact that sexual harassment is not zero tolerance approach to it. And as well, the people that we hire for it, which are FGH, they have to go under LGBTQ plus awareness training. They have to go under sexual harassment training. They have to attend even terrorist training. There's a whole list of trainings that they already go that also feature sexual harassment, and so do the bar staff. They also do that type of training. So I was just wondering, what differently are you wanting to implement? Because there already is a zero tolerance approach within Sugar House. So I just wanted to ask what the new fresh is.
So I wasn't really aware of all that. So I think that on its own shows the situation. If I wasn't even aware of the policy, that shows it's not being implemented properly. And it's about being more forceful with implementing these structures and the training as well, and saying we have a zero tolerance policy for a reason. I mean, I witnessed my friend having a trigger because she was touched by a guy, and it was very emotional, and these are the kind of things that we need to change. It shouldn't be acceptable to witness your friend go through something like that.
That's time, candidate. Thank you very much.
If I can answer the question slightly as well, I think it's about awareness, it's about getting that rule out there, but also making sure that students are more aware of staff members that they can go up to and that the staff can support them when they have an issue. So just a general issue of awareness.
But what I'm asking is, how are you going to improve this awareness then? It's already posted all over, it's in the Sugar House already on posters, it goes on the screens as well. What else can Sugar House do to raise the awareness? If it's already happening there, you can go to the security staff as well and notify them. How will you change it? That's what I'm trying to ask, is what do you bring to the table that's new to raise the awareness, if that makes sense?
That's the last question as well.
Yeah, okay, so I've seen some viral pictures in bars. They have go to the bar staff and say this code if you want to be ordered a taxi straight home if you're uncomfortable on your date. That's the kind of thing that we need to implement in Sugar. So not just don't touch anyone inappropriately, or yeah, you should do this in this situation. It's about actually doing physical steps to improve that. And if that's having a secret code so you can get out of there as quickly as possible, or get the help as soon as possible as well, it's about doing that.
Thank you very much for that. And that brings...
Can I? Oh, okay.
Yep, okay then, Ross.
It pretty much mirrors Siri's answer anyway, but it's about having that step that students can take when they feel at risk for whatever reason, and making it visibly obvious in front of a certain staff member who's maybe responsible for kind of being that one students can go to, getting more stuff up on the screens to show students what they can do, and in the toilets, in stool doors and that kind of thing.
And with that, that brings this edition of Hustings to a close. Thank you very much for coming. Good luck to all the candidates running. Voting will open on Wednesday at 10 o'clock and close at Friday at 4 o'clock. Don't forget to vote and encourage everyone else you know to. Good luck to all the candidates.